Chapter 1, Chapter 1 Chapter 1 Artos Stark. A young man, barely 14, strode down the stone corridor of Winterfell with a purpose that belied his age. Standing nearly 6 feet tall, he already towered over most grown men. A long sword hung at his waist, several throwing knives and hand axes were strapped across his chest and thighs like extensions of his body. Few would guess he hadn't lived beyond 2 decades of winters yet. With fists clenched and fury burning in his pale grey eyes, Artos Stark pushed open the large oak doors of his father's solar without knocking. "Are we truly going through with this farce, father?" he barked with a voice already deep from the cold northern air. "Giving Lyanna to that drunken whoremonger?" Lord Rickard Stark didn't even flinch at the outburst. He looked up from a scroll and fixed his youngest son with a calm but cold stare. "Watch your tongue, boy," he said firmly. "That whoremonger is Lord Robert Baratheon, Lord Paramount of the Stormlands. And yes, Lyanna will marry him." Artos's fists tightened. "You're selling your own daughter like chattel now? Is this what honor means to House Stark? To the north?" Rickard's temper cracked. "Hold your damn tongue. That's your wolf blood talking." He stood now, the shadow of the Warden of the North filling the room. "The old gods must have cursed me when I trusted Brandon and Lyanna to raise you and let them make you a pup fed on rage, pride and foolishness." Artos's jaw clenched, his fury simmering just beneath the surface. But even he knew this was a battle he could not win. Not against his father. Not even his big brother could win. Without a word, he turned his back and stormed out. His black cloak whipped behind him as he charged down the steps of the keep, his boots echoing against the stone. Rickard followed, calling after him. "Where are you gallivanting off to now, Artos?" "Your memory must be slipping, father," Artos retorted without stopping. "Last Hearth. You sent me there, remember? To be shaped by the Umbers." "You brat," Rickard growled. "You'll attend Brandon's wedding at Riverrun when Benyon returns. Your brother will want you at his side." Artos had already swung into his saddle. "I'll be there when he marries in the north. I'll not attend a marriage done in a September. You shouldn't have agreed to that southern farce." Rickard held his temper, staring as the boy rode off, 10 loyal men trailing behind him like wolves. "7 hells!" the Lord of Winterfell muttered. "Why must you be the most difficult of them all?" He stood at the gates of Winterfell a while longer, watching his youngest son going into the trees. A sigh escaped his lips as old memories stirred. He'd lost his wife when Artos was just a babe. The boy never knew a mother's love. Rickard himself had been too tangled in politics and duty to raise a child still swaddled in grief. So he'd left it to Brandon and Lyanna, and the old gods had cursed him for it. They'd fed the boy with all their fire but none of the discretion. The wolf blood ran wild in him untamed. "Clever lad," Rickard spoke in a rage of his own. But always choosing rage over reason. He'd hoped the Umbers would beat some sense into the boy. Sent him to Last Hearth, thinking the wild giants of the north might temper him. But it hadn't worked. If anything, it fanned his fire. By 14, Artos had already tasted battle. Led raids against wildling raiders. Rode like a warrior twice his age. Sparred like a berserker possessed. Even Lord Roga Umber, a giant of a man, had thrown up his hands at the boy's recklessness. "He's a damn battle maniac," Rickard muttered again, rubbing his temples. 3 days after leaving Winterfell, Artos Stark rode hard into Last Hearth under grey skies and northern winds. He liked the Umbers tall, fierce, unyielding. Larger-than-life men who respected strength, not titles. At the gates of the keep stood Great Jan Umber, heir to House Umber, a massive man in his late 20s with a wild grin and eyes as sharp as ice. "Back already, lad?" Great Jan called out as Artos dismounted. "You didn't even stay a full week in Winterfell." Artos shrugged. "Wasn't much reason to. Brandon and Lyanna are off at the tourney in Harrenhal, and father can only lecture me for so long before I go mad." Great Jan roared with laughter. Careful, Stark. Say that too loud and father might double your sparring sessions. Long as he doesn't ban me from riding again, Artos muttered. He already threatened to lock up Snow last time. Great Jan chuckled. Your warhorse is half the reason my father despairs. Storms down the yard like a bloody demon. Any news from beyond the wall? Artos asked, changing subject. Any wildlings worth chasing? I need to bleed off some frustration. Not much lately, Great Jan replied, disappointed. The bastards are growing scarce, too scared to cross the wall these days. We could poke around Bear Island again, Artos offered with a mischievous smirk. Might be some Ironborn sniffing there. Great Jan shook his head. After last time? My father made me sleep in the kennels for 2 nights. And then gave me a bloody sermon about being a father and a husband and not a young boy anymore. Artos laughed. And threatened to ban me from riding Snow. I remember. Bah, the old giant's just sour, he can't ride into raids and risk everything anymore, else mother would skin him, Great Jan huffed. Artos sparked out another laugh. And you're so much braver, right? You flinched last time, Lady Mira raised her voice. There was a dagger involved, if I recall. Fuck off, Stark, Great Jan snapped, though without heat. You know nothing of marriage. I was stuck outside the bedchamber for a full moon. I warned you, Artos said, grinning ear to ear. Great Jan shook his head in defeat. Little John's been throwing tantrums asking for his uncle Artos. He missed your chaos. I missed the little one too, Artos said softly. Reminds me there's still innocence in this damned world. The cold winds of the north howled across last hearth's timbered walls. But inside the fire-lit hall, 2 large men shared laughter and warmth. And for a brief moment, all the rage and duty pressing down on Artos Stark felt just a little lighter. Chapter 2, Chapter 2. Chapter 2 Brandon's Rage. 3 Stark siblings rode together, a host of men trailing behind them. Hundreds of men followed, dire wolf banners flapping in the warm wind, a fierce reminder that Starks had come south. Brandon Stark rode at the front, a hulking shadow atop his dark grey stallion, eyes simmering beneath thick brows. At 6.5 feet tall, with a chest like a forge bellows and a jaw set in stone, he looked like a warrior carved from ice. You should have let me handle it, Lyanna, Brandon muttered. And let you attack the crown prince in front of half the realm. Benyon scoffed, glancing up at his older brother from the saddle. You'd have dragged the north into war by sunset. Lyanna teased, brushing a lock of dark hair from her face. He is a prince, Rickard crowned me queen of love and beauty. Not that I minded. Brandon's nostrils flared. He's married, Lyanna. And you're betrothed. It's done, Benyon cut in quickly, hoping to snuff their brewing quarrel. Will not undo the crowning. You've a real wedding to attend, Brandon. Best focus on that. Brandon didn't reply. He stared out ahead, face taut with frustration. But after a pause, he asked, Where's Artos? He was supposed to come. Benyon and Lyanna exchanged a glance. Benyon sighed. A raven came from father. Artos refused. Artos refused to attend a marriage held in a southern September, not when it was supposed to be a heart tree. Father told me to return as planned. Brandon half smiled despite himself. That clever pup. Can't even fault him for it. But I miss him, at least he'd have stood with me when it counted. Benyon gave no answer. Neither he nor Lyanna wanted to imagine what might have happened if Artos had been at Harrenhal. He would have attacked Prince Rickard for that crowning, damn the consequences. No doubt in any of their minds. The wolf blood run quite wild in him. The march soon split. Benyon turned north for Winterfell, while Brandon and Lyanna continued toward Riverrun for his wedding to Catelyn Tully. A few days later, the red walls of Riverrun welcomed them with banners flying and horns blowing. Lord Hoster Tully himself stood at the gate, smiling like a man who believed all was well. "Welcome to Riverrun, Lord Brandon." "Lady Lyanna," he greeted. "It's good to see you, Lord Hoster," Brandon returned with a half-hearted bow, recalling his father's warnings, "Be diplomatic, or you'll answer for it." Inside, Hoster introduced Brandon and Lyanna to his family: Catelyn with her quiet strength, Lisa with her shy glances, and the boy they called Littlefinger. Petyr Baelish. Barely a man, lean and knife-eyed. In the days that followed, Brandon and Catelyn spent quiet moments together. She was gracious, intelligent, kind, and a good match, even if chosen by their fathers. But not everyone in Riverrun was pleased. Petyr Baelish, slight and sharp as a splinter, had loved Catelyn since childhood. In his mind, that love was mutual. And in his pride, he convinced himself that someday, she would be his. He couldn't stand to see her smile by Brandon's side. And so, brimming with foolish courage and wounded pride, he approached Brandon Stark with the full delusion of love and challenge in his veins. Brandon stood with several men when Petyr stormed in. "Lord Brandon Stark," Petyr spat. Brandon turned and frowned. "Who the hell are you?" "I am Petyr Baelish. A friend of Catelyn Tully." "You looked more like a stable boy. Speak plainly." "I challenge you," Petyr declared, chest puffed. "To a duel. For her hand." The hall fell into stunned silence for a beat. Then laughter, cynical, booming, uncontrollable. Brandon laughed the loudest. He looked around, then back at the boy glaring up at him, more mouse than man. "Is this a joke?" Petyr didn't waver. "It is no joke. I love her. And you're unworthy." Brandon's laughter dimmed. He wasn't a man who tolerated claims like these and knew how fast false rumors spread. He knew how fast whispers turned into blades in the back. "Very well," Brandon said, stripping off his armor after seeing that man was standing in scraps of steel as a armor. "I'll grant you your duel." They clashed in the training yard under the eyes of nobles and servants alike. But it was hardly a fight. Brandon toyed with him, knocking aside every pathetic thrust without effort. His patience wore thin, though he offered the boy several chances to yield. Petyr refused. Then came the final moment, Brandon raising his sword not with anger, but with grim resolve, as if putting down a wounded beast by taking pity. Catelyn arrived just in time. "Stop! Please!" Brandon halted. "He challenged me. I told him to yield. He refused." "He cares about me," she explained, breathless. "He thinks I'll be unhappy in the north. He's just a friend. Like a brother." The word hit Petyr harder than any blade. "Brother." Brandon sighed. He didn't want to embarrass his betrothed, but he couldn't let this pass. Not fully. He turned, and with one quick slash, left a deep cut across Petyr's left cheek, missing the eye by less than an inch. Blood poured down the boy's face. "This will remind you not to look at what is not yours," Brandon said, sheathing his blade. "You live because my beta asked." The castle buzzed with the tale, some horrified, some amused. Lord Hoster summoned Brandon privately, insisting Petyr was just a child, foolish but harmless. For the sake of both families, the matter had to end there. Brandon agreed. For now. But under the surface, darker things moved. Lyanna was already exchanging letters with Rhaegar Targaryen. Words laced with longing. Somewhere in those dreams of prophecy and song, the Dragon Prince had captured her heart. Their plans were far more dangerous than a crown of roses. They were planning to run. Meanwhile, the boy who lost the duel spiraled into a drunken daze. Petyr drank through shame, heartbreak, and humiliation. Catelyn ignored him, believing the lies he spun of just caring for her, but still refused to talk not to spread rumors. And Lisa, desperate for his attention from childhood, mistook his craving for Catelyn as affection aimed at her. One evening, deep in wine and deeper in delusion, Petyr mistook Lisa for her elder sister, and in that haze, he took her maidenhead. When Lord Hoster found out, fury gripped him. Lisa was given moon tea, though the girl believed she was already with a child which she lost. Peter took her grief and twisted it to his will. He knew then he'd never win through strength or honor. Brandon had that, and it brought him victory. But Peter knew now he would win through chaos. He would burn the realm in chaos. Then he would rule the ashes. He would make Catelyn his queen of the ashes. He would rule. His opportunity came when Lady Lyanna ran with Prince Rickard, sending just a letter for her actions to explain to her brother, but unfortunately for her and fortunately for him the letter was caught by Lisa first, then she gave it to me. I knew my time has come. He spread the first rumor himself. Lyanna was kidnapped. Rickard had taken her, abducted the Wolf Maiden. The prince had indeed vanished, last seen in the Riverlands. It was all Peter needed. And Brandon Stark, full of rage, still nursing his anger from Harrenhal and the Crown of Roses, heard the lie. He rode for King's Landing like a storm with fire in his heart and asking Rickard head for kidnapping his sister. Chapter 3, Chapter 3 Chapter 3 Call the Banners. Nearly 6 moons had passed since Artos Stark stormed out of Winterfell and returned to Last Hearth. Now, on the edge of 15 named days, he stood even taller, 6 feet 2, broader in the shoulders. He'd grown fast, in body and battle both. On this morning, he stood across from Great Umber in the training yard, their sparring blades clashing with sharp, echoing strikes. Around them, the frozen dirt bore the scars of a dozen morning duels. But the rhythm broke when Lord Umber approached, his usually thunderous presence oddly subdued. The 2 men lowered their blades and turned. "There's news," Lord Roga said, voice grim as a funeral bell. "Bad news." "From the south." Artos's brow furrowed. "Your sister, Lyanna," the old lord continued, "has been taken. Kidnapped by Prince Rickard. A beat passed. And Brandon," he went on. "Your brother rode to King's Landing to demand the prince's head. He was seized by the Mad King. They've summoned Lord Rickard next. He's already on the road south, hoping to clean up the mess before things burn out of control." Artos stood motionless for a moment. Then came the fire in his gut. Rage. "We march," Artos snapped. "Get your men ready, Lord Umber. We ride for King's Landing." Roga, an old warrior who had seen 2 kings rise and fall, raised a hand. "Cool your damn head, boy. You ride now, and you'll risk more than your life. Diplomacy is in motion. Your father's already gone to make peace, not spark war." "Peace?" Artos growled. "My sister's been stolen. My brother's in chains. This isn't peace, it's madness. And the South will see marching banners as a declaration of war," Roga warned, voice like rumbling stone. "If they panic, they'll kill Brandon, or your father." Artos grit his teeth, pacing, trying to chain down the fury burning through him. His fingers twitched at his sword belt. "The Mad King sits the throne, Lord Roga," Artos said at last, "steady now, but only just. We have no idea what he'll do next." He turned, eyes dark and fixed. "Prepare your men. The north is vast, we'll need time to gather strength if war comes. I'll send letters to each major house. And you'll write them on my word as a Stark." Roga tilted his head, listening as Artos continued like a man possessed. "Write this: I, Artos of House Stark, command all northern lords to prepare their men for war, should the call come. To refuse is to betray the north, and I swear by my name and my honor as a Stark, winter will come for those who do not answer." He stepped forward, standing tall like the young lord he was born to be. "Do you object, my lord?" Roga was silent for a moment. Then a dry smile creased his weathered face. "No objections," he said, then slowly knelt before Artos. "As you command, my lord." The Umbers had been loyal to the Starks for generations. Roga would not be the one to break that vow. He rose slowly, already planning how to reach every lord before snow sealed the passes. Artos turned to Great Jan. "You're coming with me. The letters won't move the clans. I need to reach the mountain folk Little, Wool, Norei, and all the rest. We ride at first light." Great Jan nodded seriously. "As you say, my lord." There was no point in arguing. When Artos burned, even rivers froze in his shadow. That night, Lord Roga and his maester pored over wax-sealed letters, bearing his heavy signature. To the lords of the North Karstark, Manderley, Bolton, Glover, Hornwood, Cranagman, Mormont, Tallhart, Locke, Searwyn. I, Lord Roga of House Umber, write at the command of Artos of House Stark. You are ordered to ready your men, gather arms, and prepare for war if it comes. Do not make us write a second time. The honor of the North is at stake. Refuse, and know this winter will come for traitors. Artos Stark swears on his honor as a Stark. Signed. Roga Umber. Lord of Last Hearth. The maester sealed each raven scroll as Roga scrawled the last signature. All had been sent except to the northernmost Highlanders. The mountain clans would not heed parchment. For the Wools, Littles, Noreis, Burleys, and Harclays only a Stark in the flesh would awaken old loyalties. And Artos would go himself. The old Umber chuckled to himself in the torchlight. That damn boy! He's the best I've ever trained. Fights like a demon, rides like the wind. Best in his generation, maybe the Golden Cub, Jaime Lannister as his only rival. They're close in age, too. He is too well famed to be not considered. The youngest knight and Kingsguard of the realm. He sobered slightly. But Artos has more than steel in his belly. He's clever when he chooses to use his head, but his chooses his rage every time. When he fights, that wolf blood burns hot. Gods help us all if war truly comes. He'll be a terror they'll never see coming. In the high north, Artos and his 10 men reached the rough edge of the frozen frontier. Great Jan rode at his side, bundled in bare furs, clutching the reins with frozen fingers. "These are wild lands," Great Jan muttered. "We'll have to take a walk to the clans." Artos nodded. "Then 2 will stay. Watch the horses. Feed them." Artos climbed down from snow, his moody warhorse covered in frost and sweat. "You stay put, Snow. I'll be back in a few days. Try not to bite anyone this time." The horse snorted as if in understanding. Snow had the wild temperament, wild and loyal only to Artos. Brandon had gifted him the beast years ago, claiming that if Artos could tame Snow, maybe he'd come close to matching his own skill in the saddle. People of the North called Brandon Stark the Centaur. His bond with horses was near unnatural. But if Brandon was ferocity in motion, Artos was riding winter itself. Thinking about Brandon now twisted knots in Artos's gut. Thinking about Lyanna made his hands clench. His father had chosen diplomacy, caution, but Artos would not idly wait. His pack was scattered. His blood taken. No matter what father decides. I will take heads for this. I will tell them that winter is coming for them. Back in Winterfell, Benyon Stark stood alone in his father's solar, the wind moaning outside like the wail of ancient ghosts. What in the 7 hells is happening? He whispered to himself, clutching the letter. First came the news: Lyanna taken. Brandon imprisoned. Lord Rickard summoned to answer for his eldest son's defiance. Then another raven fell upon his shoulders, this one bearing the Umber crest. Artos had called the North to arms. Benyon wasn't surprised. There had always been something untamable in his brother. Even Brandon, full of rage and pride, bowed before their father's voice. But not Artos. He was storm-filled with rage. There'd never been a leash that could hold him. Benyon sighed and turned from the window. So it begins. And though he would hold the North because a Stark must always remain in Winterfell, he knew the old gods were watching. He knew Artos would not be one to stay no matter what Benyon says. He was a better fighter than Benyon. More stubborn. He will not be moved as it involves Brandon and Lyanna. Artos would left to tell the south what it had forgotten. Winter was coming. Chapter 4, Chapter 4. Chapter 4 The Call of the Mountains. Artos Stark climbed the steep, wind-battered trails of the mountains, his cloak snapping in the cold wind. He already knew the answer he would receive. The mountain clans had always answered the call of the wolf. As they rode higher, he spotted 7 hunters in the snow-cloaked woods. The men, wary and alert, froze at the sight of strangers. One of them, clearly their leader, stepped forward and barked, "Who goes there?" "They wear the dire wolf sigil," one of the hunters muttered. "Stark men." "I," one of Artos's companions replied. "We are with the Starks." The leader lowered his bow, still cautious. "Men of the wolves are welcome here. But why come to the mountains?" "We pay our tributes, send our furs and meat to Winterfell," merely confused. "I am Artos of House Stark," Artos said, dismounting with a grunt. "I'm here to speak with the chieftain of the wolves." At his words, the hunters exchanged grins and gave a respectful nod. "Welcome, Wolf Lord," one of them said. "The wolves always welcome a Stark to our mountain." They guided Artos and his men toward the settlement nestled within the crags. Smoke curled from wooden huts, and the scent of roasted meat carried on the wind. One of the hunters slipped inside to fetch the chieftain. Moments later, the heavy wooden door creaked open. Out stepped Warner of the Wolves, broad-shouldered and thick-bearded, with snow-dusted hair like stone and ice. His sharp eyes landed on Artos and the towering form beside him. "Artos of the Starks." "Jon of the Umber," Warner rumbled, recognizing them both. "Winterfell's wolves walk far this time." "Warner of the Wolves," Artos greeted in return, nodding respectfully. Warner extended the guest right without hesitation and led them into his longhouse. Inside, the warmth of the fire and the smell of pine and meat offered some comfort. Still, Warner was blunt as ever. "It is an honor to welcome a Stark." "But why have you come, Wolf Lord?" Artos appreciated the clan's directness. He'd watched his father and elder brother Brandon deal with them when he was a boy, trailing at Brandon's heels like a shadow. "I've called the banners," he said. "I came to ask for your support." Warner's eyes narrowed. "Wolves go to war." "They do," Artos replied. The chieftain's face hardened, then broke into a grim nod. "Then the wolves will march." "We've never broken faith with the dire wolves. We are loyal men." "You don't ask why." Warner shrugged. "The wolves follow no king, kneel to no southern lord. But we follow the Starks. That was the oath of our ancestors taken under the heart tree." He leaned forward, voice low. "But tell me, young wolf, why not Brandon? He is heir to Winterfell. Ought he not be the one to summon us?" "Don't mistake my presence for disrespect," Artos replied. "Brandon has been seized by the Targaryens. That's why I call you now in his name and in the name of our house." Warner's jaw clenched. "A Stark, taken? The North will remember. The wolves will fight and die for the wolves." Artos nodded. "Then I ask another favor. Send 4 of your trusted men with mine to summon the other clans. I call for an ancient council of the clans." Warner's brows rose. He was clearly surprised but pleased. "The old ways live again," he murmured. "The wolves will send the word." A few days later, 5 clan chieftains sat around a great wooden table in the long hall of the wolves. Hother of the Littles, Harl of the Norais, Osmond of the Burleys, Brand of the Harklays, Warner of the Wolves. All stared at Artos Stark, surprised yet pleased that a Stark had summoned a council like in the days of old. Artos stood tall at the head of the table, voice hard with purpose. "My sister has been taken. My brother, the one you will serve as lord, has been seized. I call on you now, as your forefathers once answered my ancestors beneath the heart tree. Ready your men. Honor your oaths." For a moment, silence. Then, We will follow the wolves. We will march. We will die for the Starks. Brandon has been taken? We'll kill every southerner in our path. We are of the first men. Our blood and oaths run deep. We will follow you till death. Old gods bless us. Fists slammed on the table. The mountain rang with war cries. Artos met their fury with fury of his own. It's time the South remembers that winter is coming. The chiefs nodded grimly. One more thing, Artos added. Send forth your greybeards. The young will remain to guard the north. But the old warriors, the ones with no more fields to tend, let them come. Let them die for the Starks. There was no argument. They will be glad to go, said Harl. To die in battle, for the wolves, that is the end any northern warrior would welcome. It will ease the burden for the winters ahead, murmured Brand. The greybeards, old warriors with nothing left to prove, suicidal in their resolve, revered in northern culture, would ride again. Artos continued, I want the clans to fight under the dire wolf. You will be my front line. There are no warriors in Westeros like you. And I will fight beside you. The chieftains looked at him with pride. We will prepare the men, young wolf, Wanner said. They'll follow you to the death, added Osmond. Artos nodded, as he expected nothing less. Next, I ride to Skagos. That caused a stir. Even hardened chieftains grew quiet. Skagos. No Stark had called Skagos since the days of their rebellion. The Isles were wild, the Skagosi unpredictable, some said mad. Even the great Jan stirred, speaking for the first time in hours. My lord, it's not wise. Not even your father summoned them during the Ninepenny War. It's too dangerous. Umber speaks true, Wanner said. Skagos has betrayed the wolves before. Artos didn't flinch. You follow us not because of southern laws or Targaryen writs, but because of sacred oaths sworn before the old gods. So too have the Skagosi. I'll remind them of that. Isolation has made them forget, but I will make them remember. They saw the promise of winter in his eyes, unyielding, furious. They knew they would not sway him. If you must go, Osmond said at last, then we'll follow if things go ill. We'll stand with you, kill with you, die with you. All under your banner, Brand agreed. Artos gave a respectful bow. The Starks will remember your loyalty. He sent a raven to Lord Roga Umber, commanding ships to be prepared for Skagos. Within days, 3,200 men had gathered greybeards among them, eager to die like warriors. Before he departed, Wanner approached with a gift. A cloak, for the Wolf Lord, he said. It was a regal pelt, the hide of a great wolf, thick and weathered, tough as boiled leather. It could almost pass for armor. Artos draped it over his shoulders. I am honored, he said. At last Hearth, Lord Roga Umber read the message with a scowl. The pup was going to Skagos. Even seasoned warriors feared setting foot on that cursed isle. What is wrong with that boy? Roga muttered, pacing. But he knew Artos too well to think he could change his mind. He turned to his younger brother. Mors. Prepare the ships. And you'll go with him. Mors stared at him, shocked. Skagos? You're sending me there? I trust no one else, Roga said. You've fought in 3 wars. That boy needs someone to keep him alive. Mors growled, but nodded. Damn pup better not get me eaten by cannibals. Still, there was a glimmer of respect in his eyes. He, too, had grown fond of the young wolf. Chapter 5, Chapter 5 Skagos. Artos had reached the northern shores where ships waited to ferry him to Skagos. He now commanded nearly 3,500 warriors, all ready to fight and die for House Stark. With him stood Mors Umber, sent by Lord Roga Umber to accompany the campaign. Mors had brought 200 to 300 men of his own. The ships that awaited them were no great longships or sleek galleys, just sturdy boats, seaworthy enough to carry them across the strait to the Isle of Skagos. Artos and 2,500 of his warriors boarded the boats and began the short but grim journey. The remaining men stayed behind on the shore, forming a reserve force and guarding their rear, as there wasn't space enough for all aboard. As they disembarked on the rugged, rocky coast of Skagos, the air turned colder, heavier. The land was eerie, quiet, and wild. Few ever came to Skagos and fewer returned. Artos and his men pressed forward into the island's interior. Before long, a group of armed warriors approached them, weapons drawn and expressions grim. "Who are you, and why have you set foot on this isle?" the leader demanded, voice sharp and full of warning. His men looked ready to attack, the only thing holding them back was Artos's numbers. "I am Artos Stark. I come to speak with the clan chieftain of the Skagosi," he replied calmly but firmly. "A Stark," the man scoffed. "Leave now, or we'll sacrifice you to the old gods ourselves." The speaker was young, brash, and proud, his tone defiant and threatening. But Artos, too, was young and proud, his temper rising. He stepped forward and said coldly, "I will speak to your chieftain one way or another." With that, he drew his sword, and his men followed suit. The Skagosi warriors responded in kind, and the tension crackled like lightning in the cold air. Just as both sides seemed ready to clash, another party arrived, a middle-aged man at their head. "Enough of this foolishness," he barked. The younger man turned, surprised. "Uncle, what's going on?" "The old man has agreed to meet him," the newcomer said gruffly. Artos raised an eyebrow. "So, will I meet your chief or not?" The man nodded. "He summons you. Come, follow." Without sheathing his sword, Artos gestured to his men and followed. They were led through dense forests and narrow mountain paths, until they reached a clearing where Skagosi warriors stood in a semicircle. At the center, sitting on a wooden throne-like chair behind a crude stone table, was an old man, grey-bearded and weathered. His presence radiated the weight of years and authority. Artos stepped forward. "So, you're the chief of Skagos?" "I am Artos of House Stark." "I am Var of the Magnars, chieftain of Skagos," the old man replied. "And you, young wolf, what business brings a Stark pup to our isle? It's been decades since we last saw your kind." Artos met his gaze without flinching. "I have called the banners of war. I come to ask for your men, for your swords, for the battles to come." The old man threw back his head and laughed, echoed by his men. "Go back, young wolf," Var said. "Not even your father nor grandfather dared ask such a thing. We don't fight your wars." Artos's patience snapped. He stepped forward, drew his axe, and slammed it deep into the old table, the sound echoing through the clearing. "You call yourselves first men, yet ignore the oaths sworn beneath the heart tree." Artos roared. "The old gods would be ashamed of you, ashamed that their sworn sons turn their backs on sacred vows." A murmur of anger spread through the Skagosi. Invoking the old gods and accusing oath-breaking was no light matter among the first men. "Mind your tongue, pup!" Var snapped. "Before I carve you up and send the pieces back to your father." "Did I lie?" Artos shouted back. "Try it then. I have 2,500 men here, warriors who have pledged to die for me. We keep our oaths, even when it costs us blood. That is the pride of the first men. Can you say the same?" A thunderous banging of weapons on shields came from behind Artos. His warriors stood tall, backing their commander. Var's expression shifted, not just rage, but something else, respect. "You've got a fang, young wolf," the old chieftain said. "And you speak of the first men like a true son of the old blood. We have not attacked your lands, that is how we've honored the oaths. We keep to ourselves. We have more first men blood in us than any in the south." Artos narrowed his eyes. "And yet it was your ancestors who swore loyalty to the Starks, and we who let your line remain in power even after your rebellion. You speak of not raiding our lands like it's a favor. We are the pride of the first men. While your people hid on this isle, we bled to halt the Andals and their gods. The clearing fell silent. Then the old man gave a low chuckle. Artos, a strong name. Named after Artos the Implacable, I'd wager. It suits you. You've got the wolf's blood in you, no doubt. He stood slowly. You speak of the old ways. Let us then settle this in the old tradition of fight in a shield circle. My grandson, Dern, will face you. He's not my heir, but one of our strongest warriors. If he wins, we continue our customs, no men for your war, only gifts and tribute. But if you win, we'll renew our oaths beneath the heart tree and ride under the Stark banner once again. Artos didn't hesitate. Old way it is. Mors Umber and the Great Jan grunted their disapproval but said nothing. Their trust in Artos ran deep. A shield circle was formed, and both champions stripped down to their small clothes. The weapon, the axe fitting for warriors of the old blood. I am Artos, champion of House Stark. I am Dern, champion of the Magnars of Skagos. They circled. The fight began, ferocious and fast. Dern was broader and older, but Artos matched him in height and surpassed him in speed and precision. His axe moved like a blur, dodging powerful swings with fluid grace. Artos studied Dern's movements, then he saw an opening. He struck. A flash of steel, and Dern's head fell, blood spraying across the snow-covered earth. Silence. Artos approached the body, dipped his fingers in the blood, and smeared it across his chest. Then he turned toward the weirwood tree and spoke in the old tongue. Ik Artos Starka, Wolfkinner Sunu, Sloan and Heeldas in Diemdra Aldguden. Nu Sty Fram, Nwe, Und Swearitrua afresh. I, Artos Stark, son of wolf blood, struck down your champion in the judgment of the old gods. Now step forth, kneel, and swear your oath anew. He let Dern's blood fall upon the roots of the weirwood, sealing the ritual. Var, the old chieftain, stepped forward slowly. Then, in front of all gathered, he knelt and swore his oaths anew to House Stark under the eyes of the old gods, in the old way. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/KreganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 6, Chapter 6. Chapter 6 The North remembers. Artos marched toward Winterfell with an army of 6,000 men at his back. Among them were 2,500 Skagosi warriors, a staggering number considering the entire population of the island barely reached 25,000. It was a true commitment. Not only had Var of the Magnars given his warriors, but also his granddaughter, Ye. She rode alongside them now. She wasn't overly beautiful, but she was striking in her own way, sharp-eyed and unflinching. Var claimed she'd be useful. Artos supposed she might be. Nights in war were long, and she'd not be his first. Being around Brandon Stark too long had its effects. Truth be told, he was surprised Brandon didn't have a bastard already. But such things didn't matter now. Brandon and Lyanna. That was what mattered. Bringing them home. It had been a full moon since Artos rode out. Banners had been called, clans summoned. It was time for word from the south, news from his father. He reached the gates of Winterfell, climbed down from his horse, and entered the keep. Something was off. The mood was heavy, the air grim. Then he saw Benyon face pale, eyes red-rimmed with fury and sorrow. Benyon walked up and embraced him tightly. A raven came from King's Landing, he whispered. Father and Brandon are dead. The Mad King burned them, accused of treason. And now he demands Ned and Lord Robert's heads. Artos stood frozen, heart clenched, then crushed. He hugged Benyon tighter, eyes closed. Then he stepped back. A storm was brewing in his chest. He killed our father and brother, Artos growled. His son stole our sister. And now he dares ask for my brother's head. His voice trembled with rage. The north will march. The dragons will burn. Winter is coming for them. He turned to Benyon. Send ravens again. The banners are already called, but the lords must now know the truth. Tell them to gather their greybeards, rally their men, and move swiftly. We march south, and we won't stop until we've torn the Targaryens from history. Benyon nodded grimly. A short while later, the brothers sat together in the great hall, calmer now, but the fire had not left their eyes. I want 5,000 men raised from Winterfell, Artos ordered. 3,000 greybeards, men with age and experience. The rest, young blood lads with fire in their veins. I'll take 2,000 of the younger men and 3,000 greybeards with me. The rest stay here. Benyon frowned. Shouldn't I lead them? You're younger than me. You know as well as I do I'm the better fighter, Artos said. I can't rule Winterfell, Ben. I was never meant to. Father always said I'd die in battle. Better I die fighting for the north, avenging him and Brandon, bringing Lyanna home, than in some meaningless skirmish in the snows. Benyon didn't argue. He knew his brother too well. You've done something incredible, he said quietly. You brought the Skagosi out of isolation. No Stark has done that in generations. Even father never dared. They swore their oaths like every other northern clan, Artos replied. And oaths must be honored. They'll march directly under me, alongside the mountain clans. We'll be at the front. Benyon nodded again, his respect unspoken but clear. Jonaran has refused the king's orders, he said. He's already called his banners. Ned is on his way north to call ours as well, though he'll find you've already done it. Lord Robert and Arryn are fighting in Gulltown, securing the Vale. Artos nodded. Good. They'll need to hold Gulltown. If the Vale is vulnerable, it all falls apart. Benyon continued, the Reach will be a problem 50,000 strong, if they support the Targaryens. And the Lannisters are no less dangerous. 10 to 15,000 knights, fully armoured, disciplined. And then there's Dorne. Not as many, but their spears are deadly. Artos narrowed his eyes. Let them come. Let them all come. The north will stand. Even if I fall, they'll feel winter in their bones before the end. Prepare the reserves. Train the young ones. Time is the enemy now. I'll do it, Benyon said. Crush them, brother. Show them that winter has come. Artos rode out on his white horse, Snow, with 11,000 men marching behind. Beside him rode great Jon Umber, Mors Umber, the mountain clan chiefs, and Stig, heir to Var and representative of the Skagosi. His sister Yor rode close as well, fierce-eyed and silent. They rode for Moat Cailin, where the rest of the northern host would gather. What they found there was breathtaking. Camps stretched across the swamps and grass, banners of ancient northern houses fluttering in the breeze. Men drilled, sharpened blades, prepared wagons. The north was awakening. War council at Moat Cailin. Inside the main tent, the northern lords had gathered. We've assembled 25,000 men, said Lord Cruin, looking around. More than expected. But winter is near. Men are still needed in the fields. If the war stretches, we can call more, but for now, this is what we have. Murmurs of approval passed through the lords. Many had expected fewer. But the young wolf had done what no Stark had managed in living memory. He had brought the Skagosi. Rough, savage, whisper-ridden warriors. Some said they were cannibals. But they were on the Stark side, and that made them the enemy's nightmare. At the edge of the room, Lord Roose Bolton stood quiet. Even he looked uneasy at the sight of the Skagosi. We've got the numbers, said Lord Rickard Stark, stepping forward. I can command them for you, boy. I was named for your father. I've fought in battles. You're still green, let us older men lead. Other lords began muttering, tossing their own names forward, debating leadership. Artos rose to his feet. You don't need to worry about that, he said coldly. I am Artos of House Stark. We have fought wars for 8,000 years. I am a Stark. I will lead this army until my brother, Eddard Stark, arrives. Is that clear? He looked at them one by one, his gaze sharp and unrelenting. The lords fell silent. Then Jeor Mormont stepped forward. We Mormonts will fight under the Starks. We always have. We always will. Artos nodded. And it will be an honor for me, and for my brother Ned. He turned back to the council. We will march along the King's Road. We maybe will meet with Valaman. They will most probably go to Riverlands to get Their support, but we will ride south, most likely toward the Reach, if they side with the dragons. Prepare for harsh terrain, long rides, and harder battles. Plans were drawn. Maps studied. Routes debated. The war was coming and the North remembered. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 7, Chapter 7. Chapter 7 Winter is coming. Artos stood in the heart of a gathered host, 25,000 northern warriors, steel in their hands and fire in their hearts. They had come to march south, to avenge their murdered lord and his heir. Artos raised his voice so all could hear. Men of the north! The king has taken your lord my father and his heir my brother Brandon and murdered them in cold blood. He thinks we are weak. Are we weak? A thunderous cry rose up from the ranks. No. 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 Artos's voice grew louder. The lords say I'm too young to command. A green boy, they call me. But they forget I am a Stark. For 8,000 years, Starks have fought, bled, and ruled the north. We have survived every storm, we became men on the battlefield. I'll do it again. And I'll do it with you. Are you with me? With the Starks? With the north? With you? With the Starks? With the north? Their roars shook the marshlands. I will fight at your side, on the front lines. Together, we will make the South remember. They call us savages. Barbarians. Less than them. Let us show them why they fear us. Why they whisper the name of the North like a curse. Let us show them that we are true warriors, true men, first men. We'll make them regret ever laying a hand on our kin. Let them remember. The North remembers. The North remembers. The North remembers. Artos raised his sword high. We are the sons of the first men. We held the North when the South was dust. We've repelled the Andals, the Ironborn, and worse. We will fight hard. We will fight brutal. So brutal that they'll see us in their nightmares. And we will make them fear the words. Winter is coming. Winter is coming. Winter is coming. The chant rang out, over and over, until it became thunder in the cold air. As the army settled, the war council rode beside Artos. Lord Jeor Mormont gave a satisfied grunt. A fine speech, my lord. You've given them a cause, a resolve to carry. That's what a commander does. Artos nodded. My father once told me war isn't about numbers, it's about resolve. A leader's task is to guide that resolve. Lord Roga Umber gave a half smirk. Sounding wise, lad. That's new. You've changed. Used to be more blunt, more brute. Artos gave a soft laugh but turned solemn. The last conversation I had with father was an argument. We argued. I was angry, I left for last hearth to cool my head. I remember, Roga said. You were bloodthirsty. Wanted to sneak off to Bear Island, kill some Ironborn. A wild pup. Gior chuckled, remembering the pair of you Greybeards and you showing up at shores, many times. Even he shared some battles with them. Artos smiled faintly, then looked distant. When I rode away from Winterfell that day, I heard his last words, from the gates. He was angry, but he called me clever lad. Then he added, you choose rage over reason. He was right. Gior and Roga fell silent. They knew the boy, his temper, his fury, the wolf blood in him. But this reflection was something new. If I'd listened to him, Artos continued, if I'd gone to Brandon's wedding, maybe I could have stopped this. Maybe I could have stopped Lyanna from being taken. Maybe. No, Roga cut in, firm. Banish that thought. If you'd been there, you'd be dead. Maybe kill 1 or 2 of the king's guard before they cut you down. But the outcome would be the same. Gior nodded. You're alive, Artos. That's what matters. You're the one left to avenge them. And to bring Lyanna home. No one else could have united the North like you did. Nobody could have bring Skagosi men, not even Brandon. Not even Eddard. Maybe, Artos said quietly. But now that I live, I must do it right. I'll follow father's words. I will have to follow reason more. I will have to command cleverly. If battlefield isn't about numbers, it is sure about psyche. I have done my best to ensure our men's psyche, and in battlefield we will fight to dominate psyche of the enemies. He turned his head, glancing behind at the silent figure riding with them. The Skagosi, the Greybeards, the mountain clans will lead from the front. We'll strike fear into their bones. Isn't that right, Stig? Stig, heir of Skagos, gave a sharp grin. We know how to bring fear and infamy. But don't throw away your rage, Stark. Rage wins wars. That's how you got our support. It keeps you alive. Roga added, he's right. I've seen it in you. The angrier you get, the faster you move. The harder you hit. Gior stroked his beard. I've seen it too on Bear Island, against the Ironborn. You're nearly unstoppable when rage takes hold. Rage is part of me, Artos admitted. It's the wolf blood my father spoke of. I won't abandon it. I can't abandon it, but after the battle, I'll try to think like a commander, not just a killer. Stig quipped from the back, maybe that's why the old man sent my sister to cool your blood. That drew laughs from all around. Lucky lad, Roga joked. A woman to keep you company and men to fight beside you. The Skagosi have been real generous with you. Maybe I should visit Skagos. We are near to them. Seems like you've finally found your reason, Gior teased. Artos laughed. Well, I'll never be as reasonable as Brandon. That made them all laugh. Even Stig, who had never met Brandon, chuckled at the joke, understanding the tone. Elsewhere. Stormlands. Robert Baratheon rode south from Storm's End after crushing the Loyalist forces at Gulltown. He'd raised the banners and was now marching on Summerhall, hunting down Targaryen sympathizers. To hold the Stormlands in his absence, he left Stannis, his stern younger brother, with 500 men to guard the castles and keep order. Vale of Arryn. Eddard Stark, delayed by sea storms, found himself stranded in the Three Sisters, a cluster of dubious, treacherous lords who served House Sunderland. They were known to shift loyalties. I must get to the Vale, he told the few men with him. Every hour we lose gives the enemy strength. But if Artos has already heard the news, he'll have marched. He always moves faster than the rest of us. It's a risky bet that I will take. I trust him to command and march Northmen. Eddard had arranged secret passage to the mainland, but it would delay him and the gathering of northern forces in the Vale. The Riverlands. Jon Arryn, Warden of the East, now marched into the Riverlands, seeking to bring House Tully and their bannermen to the cause. He knew the numbers. His own strength, 10,000 knights. Robert Baratheon's growing army, 25,000 to 30,000. The north, maybe 15,000 to 20,000, maybe more, but winter limited their reach. Targaryen sighed. The reach, 60,000 at least, maybe more. Crownlands, at least 30,000. Lannister host, up to 15,000 armored knights. Even with all their forces combined, they would be outnumbered. Without the Riverlands, they would be doomed. Even with Riverlands we would be at disadvantage. But we will fight. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/KreganTheBlackWolf. New members. Globet. Idk. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 8, Chapter 8. Chapter 8 Rebellion. Battle of Summer Hall. Robert Baratheon's POV. The stormlight painted the broken towers of Summer Hall in hues of iron and gold. My heart thundered like distant drums as I led my men across the trampled, blood-soaked field. Lord Fell's sigil rippled on standard and surcoat, his host already drawn in defiance, braver than I'd hoped. Across the gusting wind, he raised his sword. For King Aerys. For the Stormlands, he cried. Traitors! I bellowed, my voice ragged and raw. Storm's End was behind me, vengeance in my hands. For Storm's End. For honor. For Robert Baratheon. Steel rang as we surged forward. I found Lord Fell in the chaos, his blade fast, his stance firm. Stronger than the tales said. But I was the storm, the wrath of gods and thunder. I ducked his swing and brought my warhammer crashing into his thigh. He stumbled, armor buckling. Sweat and mist blurred the shattered ruins behind him. This is my storm. My land. My war. I struck again once, twice until he collapsed, blood on his lips and rain on his brow. A moment of silence, then his men broke. We chased them down like wolves in the rain. But even as victory came, new banners rose, Kaffaren blue, Grandison gold. Through the mist, their knights approached. Silveraxe Fell glared through the grime. I grabbed his pauldron and snarled. Yield, and you live. Fight, and you join your father. He yielded, jaw clenched, eyes burning. Kaffaren's knights hit like a hammer, hard and fast. A sword tore my sleeve, blood running down my arm, but I swung back harder. My hammer broke their shield wall in a roar of fury. When Lord Kaffaren fell to his knees, I seized his shoulder. Your king sent you to die for madness. It was midday before Grandison's men arrived, expecting allies. What they found instead were the Storm Lords, blooded but unbeaten, blades already waiting in the howling wind. They barely formed ranks before we shattered them. By sunset, 3 armies lay broken across the fields. Lord Fell dead. Kaffaren and Grandison chained. Silveraxe disarmed and glowering. I stood tall in ruin and rain, battered, bruised but unbroken. I climbed a crumbling stone, rain streaking down my face, turning my hair black as night. Storm's End stands. I roared. The Stormlands stand with me. If any man still serves the dragon, ride for King's Landing, pray the storm does not catch you. A roar rose from my men, bruised fists pounding steel. Eddard Stark. I've reached the mainland of the Vale. Now, I ride alone through open country toward Jonaran's camp. The land here is empty, too empty. Quiet roads and long shadows. It makes travel faster, but also dangerous. It's been weeks since I washed up on the shores of the Three Sisters. Since then, I've had little but hard roads and cold meals. But now, I finally see their banners ahead. Jonaran steps from his command tent as I ride in. Ned. What happened? You were supposed to be in the north, calling banners. My ship wrecked in the storm. I was washed up near the sisters. Made my way here through the Vale. He exhaled, relief and worry fighting in his eyes. Thank the 7 you're alive. But your delay, we need the north, Ned. Without them, we'll be crushed. You don't need to worry about that, I said. The north will come. Even without me. My brother Artos would have called the banners after listening to the news of father and Brandon. He frowned. Your brother? Artos, isn't he 15? You really think northern lords will rally behind a boy? He's a Stark, I answered. He's got the Umbers. The Mormonts will follow regardless. The mountain clans always answer the call. Cruin, Winterfell, and many others will stand with him. He's more like Brandon than I ever was. He is well liked in North. John nodded slowly. We'll send scouts to confirm. I hope you're right, Ned. I truly do. Without the North, we are badly outnumbered. Robert Baratheon's POV. We push west toward Ashford. Momentum, that's what I need. Keep pressing. Keep moving. Strike before the enemy gathers. If we can take Ashford, we can push deeper. Crack the reach open like a ripe melon. Lord Randyll Tarly. War. House Tarly has always been a house of soldiers. We wait for wars like this. Young Robert Baratheon's won some skirmishes. He's confident now. That will be his mistake. I've gathered 35,000 men. More than enough. We hold the terrain, we know these roads, these fields. He won't expect us, not yet. We'll strike before the full reach banners are raised. We'll bleed him and scatter his rabble. Battle of Ashford. Robert expected a delay, a slow muster of the reach. He thought he had time. He didn't. Lord Randyll Tarly struck fast, bringing the hammer down with brutal precision. His forces disciplined, armored, relentless hit us like a tidal wave. I'd already folded in the armies of the traitor houses Fell, Grandison, the broken remnants of Summerhall, but it wasn't enough. We were overwhelmed. I ordered the retreat. Lord Tarly cut men down like wheat. When he saw Lord Caffarin, who had turned against King Aerys, he rode him down without hesitation. 3 swings of his sword, and Caffarin's head rolled in the mud. I watched from the rear, helpless as his blood soaked the field. We couldn't be trapped in the Stormlands. I took my remaining men and fell back north, toward the Riverlands. The reach was too strong here. Too fast. We needed allies. A new path. Behind us, Randyll Tarly stood tall, already issuing commands. Storm's End would be his next target. Artos Stark. We've marched for moons now, cutting across the north and through the neck. I lead the army south, heading for the Trident. Scouts have returned with news, the Vale host is near, coming down from the Bloody Gate. We'll meet soon, our forces joined at last. My men are tired but steady. Morale is high. They're hungry for vengeance. Hungry for blood. Hungry to remind the South why the North is feared. But gods, I'm tired. Being a commander isn't all glory and steel. It's supply lines, food stores, broken boots, and sick men. I miss the days when I was just swinging my sword. Now I swing maps and scrolls. I pray to the old gods that Ned returns soon. I need him. I need someone else to carry this weight. Until then I'll carry it. For my father. For Brandon. For Lyanna. For the North. Aftermath. Robert Baratheon. I was on my to Stony Seps, a small town in Riverlands. I have just 3,000 men on my side. Rest of them retreated into Stormlands. I am injured. My armies are tired. We need to rest if need to win this war. Randyll Tarly. I am moving towards Stormlands to siege it. I have broken most of its army. Now they will be trapped in Their homes. Rest of Their supplies were taken by retreating army. So Storm's End won't have much, so we can starve them and have them surrender the castle. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 9, Chapter 9. Chapter 9 Lord of Winterfell. Artos Stark. My army was approaching the Vale war camp. Scouts had already informed me Ned was here. Thank the gods. The North would meet its new lord, and Ned could finally stand among the northern banners where he belonged. As we reached the gates, Ned waited for us. I dismounted from snow and strode to him. I didn't hesitate. I wrapped him in a firm embrace. I missed you, brother. Me too, Artie, me too, Ned murmured. I pulled back, arching a brow. I'm not a child anymore, Ned. Too old for that name. The northern lords chuckled, watching our reunion with smirks and amusement. Then I turned and raised my hand. One of my men stepped forward, carrying a long wrapped object. I took it gently, unwrapping the cloth. Ice. The Valyrian steel greatsword of House Stark, handed down through centuries. I dropped to one knee and held it up. For the new Lord of Winterfell. Every northern lord present kneeled alongside me. All, save for the mountain clans and Skagosi, who stood silent but respectful. They do not kneel. They never have. Ned took the sword, unsheathed it, and let out a breath. Stand up, all of you. Before the ground gets too uncomfortable. I rose, and so did the rest. Ice gleamed in his hands, dark ripples dancing in the metal. Dash. In the war camp. The great tent was packed. Lords from the Vale and North sat around a long table as maps were unfurled and strategy discussed. Jonaran spoke first. How many men did the North bring? It's more than we expected. We have about 25,000, Lord Roga Umber replied. Ned blinked. That many? I thought the North would struggle with winter coming. You need men in the fields. We would have, Roga said, but the Skagosi joined us. And the greybeards too. I added, I only took 5,000 from Winterfell lands. Benion's still there, drilling more men, arming them, training them. If this war drags on, we'll have reinforcements. Ned looked stunned. You got the Skagosi to answer the call. I went there myself. Settled it by the old ways. Duel in the shield circle. I won. They followed. He stared at me for a long moment. I don't know whether to scold you or praise you. I'll take praise. I earned it. I praise to be a fool. But the greybeards, he asked. Was that truly necessary? I met his gaze. Ned, I know your sense of honor and mercy. But we are Northmen. We fight hard. The greybeards wanted to fight. They want to die as warriors, not rot in some hall. It's their choice, their way. Don't dishonor it. Ned nodded, reluctant but understanding. Dash. Jonaran shifted the topic. Our plan is to march to Riverrun. Secure Lord Hoster Tully's alliance. We need the Riverlands. Then that means Ned. I trailed off. He gave a quiet smile. I'll take Brandon's place. I'll marry Lady Catelyn. The room fell respectfully silent for a moment. You're certain? I asked. The Starks have done their duty for 8,000 years, Ned said. I will do mine. A few northern lords exchanged approving glances. Impressed by Ned's resolve. Well. I hear she's beautiful. That's some comfort, at least, I said with a smirk. Ned chuckled. Things got more serious. I leaned over the table. We don't have time for long betrothals. The Reach will already be harassing Robert. He needs support. True, Ned agreed. But we can't abandon Riverrun. Their armies are vital. I have a plan. He stood, drawing lines on the map. Artos, take the northern host. March south into the Reach. Put pressure on their supply lines. Robert will attack from the front. You'll strike from behind. They'll be caught in a vice. And the Crownlands? Lord Royce asked. They won't mobilize fast enough. By the time they do, we'll have Riverrun's men and be moving east to hit the Reach again from behind. They won't know where to turn. The tent murmured with approval. Even the Vale Lords nodded in respect. A sound plan, I said. I'll leave 5,000 men with you, Ned, for escort and security. Lord Cerwyn will command them. Said Cerwyn, rising. It would be my honor to stay beside the Lord of Winterfell. My sister Maege will also stay behind. She's a fierce fighter. She'll keep your head on your shoulders, Jeor Mormont added. The heirs of each house will remain too, I said. It will forge bonds between our houses and secure the future. Everyone nodded. Where's the brother I used to know? Ned asked with a grin. Hot-headed, reckless, always picking fights. Now you talk like a war chief. Laughter rang through the tent. Ned had earned their respect, not by name but by nature and actions. That night, we finalized our strategy, then rested. Tomorrow, we would move. March to the Reach. I was riding ahead of the Northern Army. We'd be heading south to support Robert's forces. Never thought I'd be aiding that womanizing brute who once begged to wed my sister. Robert was tolerable. Brave, even. But he wasn't worthy of Lyanna. Still, this was war. Ned had given the order. And he was Lord of Winterfell now. I followed. Well, looks like I'll be stuck marching with old men for moons, I muttered. Old, barked Roga Umber. We're in our bloody prime. Speak for yourself. Tall Heart snorted. The lords all grumbled and groaned. I smirked and gave them a smug look. They growled louder. The Reach lords. Lord Mace Tyrell rode at the head of his army 35,000 strong. But word had already reached him Lord Tarly had defeated Robert Baratheon at Ashford and moved to besiege Storm's End. One Reach lord grumbled, the battle's done. The glory goes to Tarly. We'll just be sitting at a siege like fat hens. He'll take all the credit. We'll be footnotes in a maester's scroll, said another. Then came news Northern forces were marching into the Reach. They must be coming to aid Robert, someone said. But they don't know he's already lost. We outnumber them. 35,000 to maybe 20,000. We could crush them before they even know what's coming. Mace Tyrell considered it and smiled. We ride. Let's show the North what it means to challenge the Reach. Howland Reed. I am not with Lord Ned, not yet. Artos sent me south. Crannogmen are quiet as cats and fast as foxes. Scouts of the neck. That's what we do. And it was good that he did. I saw them. 35,000 Reachmen. Marching fast. Right into the path of the northern host. I turned and ran, faster than the wind. The North needed to know. Or they would die in the fields of the Reach, alone and outnumbered. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 10, Chapter 10. Chapter 10 The battle begins. Howland Reed burst into the northern war camp just before dusk, his leather boots muddy and his eyes sharp. He went straight toward Artos, who stood near the command tent going over formation lines. My lord, Howland said, breathing hard, Reach army coming. At least 30,000 men, maybe more. Artos didn't flinch. You did good work, Lord Reed. Lord Jeor Mormont stepped forward, eyes narrowed. It's flat and open ground. No cover. No terrain to hold. They have numbers, said Lord Tallheart. More men than us, more armor, more horses. We're under-armored, Lord Bolton muttered, arms crossed. They'll press that advantage. Aye, agreed Lord Locke and Lord Flint. More steel. More food. Artos grinned. Good. Lots of supplies for us then. That got a few chuckles from the lords. We need a plan, Artos continued. And I've one in mind. The map was rolled out and the northern commanders gathered. In the front, tall hearts, locks, and flints. Hold shield line. Absorb the first volley of arrows. Once the archers are spent, mountain clans, Skagosi, Umbers, and Mormonts move in hard. I'll lead the charge. Right flank Boltons and Manderleys. Left flank Karstarks, Dustins, and Riswells, Artos said, pointing. Glovers and Hornwoods in reserve. Rotate them in when needed. For archers, Georg nodded to Howland, all Northmen's bows together under the Crannog Lord. A simple plan, Artos said, but we know our strengths and our weaknesses. Lord Glover commands the reserves. Manderley on the right. Karstark on the left. Then Artos glanced across the table. And hear this. Don't fight like you're scared. Don't fight like Southerners. We will hard like Northerners if you run. I'll behead you myself. Aye. Golden words, Roga Umber barked. The North will not forget any coward, said Georg grimly. Artos nodded. Prepare the men. We march. Later, on the line, Artos stood atop a small rise and looked toward his men. Men of the North, he shouted, voice carrying. We've marched long and hard. I know you're tired. I know you're bored. Laughter rolled across ranks. Aye. 2 gods damned long. Well, Artos went on, the wat's over. Reachmen are upon us. 35,000 men. Against our 20,000. He paused. Lords say it's a bad field. We're outnumbered. No stronghold to protect us. So tell me, are we afraid? No, the men roared. This'll be hard. Greybeards march among you without intention of returning home. We all may die here but we're Northmen. Storms and snow made us hard. And we'll show them what we're made of. He drew his sword. I lead from the front. As your commander. As a Stark. Now tell me, are you with me? With the Starks, they shouted back in unison. With the Starks. Artos raised his sword toward the sky. Then let's give them a battle they'll never forget. By dawn, Artos and the northern host stood in marching formation, riding toward the oncoming Reach force. A message came. Lord Mace Tyrell had requested a parley. Artos agreed to entertain it. There would be no peace, but he wanted to see the smug fool eye to eye. Mace Tyrell was armored in gold and green, his cloak edged with golden roses. He rode with his bannerman, puffed up with confidence. Boy, he said, lips curled, you're young. So I'm giving you a chance. Surrender now. Spare yourself and your men the bloodshed. You have what, 25,000? Pitiful. Artos sat calm in the saddle. You're right, Lord Tyrell. We have less, only 20,000. The Tyrell lords grinned, smug. And you're right, someone should surrender today, Artos added. Because I fear you're just 10,000 men too short. Mace blinked once. Do you surrender, my lord? Or do you need time, to find more men? The northern lords exploded with laughter behind Artos. The mountain clans were pounding their axes on shields. Even the Skagosi smirked. Mace Tyrell flushed. Is this a joke to you? No, Artos said. But you sure are. Oh, that'll sting, muttered Roga Umber, grinning. Go back to camp, Tyrell, Artos said. You'll be needing the rest. Fuming, Mace turned his horse. You'll regret this, boy. Back in position, Artos waited behind the first shield line. The horns blew. The Reach army advanced in a long tide of armor and banners. Arrows darkened the sky. Northern shields held. Then the lines met. Steel clashed. Men screamed. It was time. Ride! Artos roared, charging ahead on snow, lance in hand. His elite force thundered behind him. Skagosi, mountain clans, Umbers, more mounts at his side. He crashed through Reach ranks like a hammer through pottery. His lance took down 3 before shattering. He didn't stop. He threw throwing axes, knives. He threw 2 blades at oncoming knights. One took the man in the eye, the other in the neck. Not honorable but efficient. Ned would disapprove of my actions or north such unneeded brutality that I allowed in the field, but good thing for me he wasn't here. Otherwise there would be lectures to listen. He dismounted into chaos. He told Snow to get back in safe zone. Roga Umber at his side, Geor Mormont grunting nearby, Stig with blood on his face. Skagosi were howling, cutting, tearing, fearless. Greybeards swung with nothing to lose. Every blow meant death or honor. Artos pushed deeper into Reach ranks, fighting like a rabid wolf. Fast. Unstoppable. Blood and rage surged through him. The front lines shattered around his fury. He was the storm. The fight felt that it has been hours, but in reality only 30 minutes have been passed. But my plan was working. The fear could be seen in enemies' eyes. They were shocked at brutality and savageness of northern warriors. Shocked that greybeards were fighting like they have no intention to live. Battling till fear or death. Smoke and blood clouded his mind. He was deeper than expected, near the Reach command. Reach knights and lords were throwing down weapons, surrendering. He turned to order the halt. Then one Reach lord drew a hidden blade. And stabbed Roga Umber. The old lord let out a cry, staggering back. Artos reacted on instinct. In one motion, he flung a knife across the space. It slammed into the lord's throat. He dropped like a stone. But it was already too late. Roga was bleeding badly. Suddenly, the other Reach knights, those who had surrendered, grabbed swords. They betrayed their words. Tried to kill him. That was all the excuse Artos needed. He lost himself in the blood. Other lords and men with him also started killing enemies without restraint. Not taking a single surrender. Artos was a raged beast in the field, killing without any mercy non-stop. Protecting Lord Roga. He killed without pause. Blade in each hand. His breaths came short, like a beast snarling under armor. Rage overtook him. Visions flickered in his mind. Strange. One moment it was the battle. The next, strange images like he was watching the field from behind. Then back again. It was disorienting. His vision alternating. He was fighting on instincts. He kept fighting. Slashing through men like autumn wind through leaves. Another flicker, a vision of himself, dancing through the Reach soldiers to enemies and allies alike. He looked like a demon in steel. He understand now about his vision, at least the source. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/KreganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 11, Chapter 11. Chapter 11 Warg. I understood now why my vision had begun to shift. It was Snow's eyes I had been seeing through. A strange sensation, but the answer came easily. I was a warg. I had heard the old stories from old Nan 1,000 times before, dismissing them as tales for children's. But the moment I felt the connection, the clarity, the instinct, there was no doubt. I could see what Snow saw. I could feel the world through him. But there was no time to dwell on it. The battle was nearing its end, and the North had seized an undeniable momentum. Yet rage burned within me. Their betrayal. Their arrogance. Their audacity. I had only just begun to deliver the carnage they deserved. Snow arrived, white and ghost-like amidst the blood and mud. I climbed onto his back, shouting with fury across the battlefield. Take no surrender! Kill them all! Winter is coming! The call echoed and multiplied, taken up by thousands of voices like a storm wind through a pine forest. Winter is coming! The battlefield trembled with the roar. I spurred Snow forward, grabbed a broken spear from the ground, and charged. I fought like a man possessed, no, like a beast. Every enemy before me fell, their blood spraying across Snow's once pristine coat. My rage became the only thing that guided me, hot, savage, and blinding. Alone, I carved a path through the Reach lines. No allies by my side. Just me, Snow, and death. Northmen, seeing their commander unleash hell itself, were swept into a frenzy. Something ancient awakened in them. They surged forward like wolves in a blood haze, unyielding, unstoppable. The Reach soldiers began to break. I was killing them with no mercy on my mind. Just a single thought of killing, and I didn't stop my rampage. Terror gripped their hearts as they fled. I could hear them screaming. Demons of the North! Demons of the North! And still I rode. My armor soaked red, Snow's coat now crimson. So terrifying was the sight that some Reach soldiers dropped their swords and stood still, as if to embrace death rather than flee from it. Others wept, soiling themselves as they ran. I cut down dozens more, until I reached a cluster of Reach lords surrounded by their knights. They were shaking in their gilded armor, eyes wide like startled children. Behind me, the rest of the northern host arrived: Lords Georg Mormont, Stig, Manderley, Bolton, Karstark. The full fury of the north gathered around. Even the northern lords stared at me with a flicker of awe and fear. I dismounted Snow, whose flanks were drenched in gore. One Reach knight stammered, "Weserin." I drove my blade through his throat before he could finish. There would be no surrender. One by one, I began to butcher the knights, ignoring the cries and pleas. The northern lords had no choice but to follow my lead. I advanced toward Lord Mace Tyrell, the swollen lord of Highgarden himself. He looked ready to faint. Lord Georg Mormont stepped forward, concern in his voice. "My lord, it would be wise to keep him alive. He's valuable as a prisoner." I growled, "People like him isn't worth the air he breathes. The North has no use for him." Mace fell to his knees, blubbering. "Please, spare me. Highgarden will pay you richly. Gold, lands, anything." I raised my sword to end him. "My lord, stop," came a shout. Lord Roga, bandaged but on his feet, limped into view, supported by his brother Mors Umber. I turned in shock. "You should be resting, not on a battlefield." Roga's face was grim. "And let you kill a prize like this? Think, Artos, remember what your father words. Reason over rage. This man is worth more alive than dead." The other northern lords murmured in agreement. Even Stig and Bolton nodded. I exhaled sharply, then lowered my blade. "Fine. Take them prisoner." Already, our soldiers were dragging the Reach lords away in chains. The rest of their army had broken completely, scattering across the fields. Lord Karstark approached. "Shall we pursue them? Kill the stragglers before they rejoin any remaining Reach host." I shook my head. "No. Let them go. Let them carry their terror and fear with them. Let them spread the dread. It will create a psyche of fear among enemies' camp. It will prove us good in coming war." The lords understood. Nods passed around. As they understand seeing Theodlord and his horse fully covered in blood terrified even they. I mounted Snow once again and rode to the heart of the army. "Men of the North!" I roared. "The Reachmen flee before us. They call us demons, demons of the North." Cheers erupted. Thunderous and wild. They came with 35,000 men. We had 20,000. But we told them winter had come. And we showed them what it meant. The North remembers. The North fights like warriors. The Northmen roared back, bloodlust still burning in their veins. Something primal had taken hold of them. They weren't men anymore, they were beasts, howling for more war. Northern army both in awe and fear, seeing their commander stood stop his horse both in red hue of blood fully covered. Demonwolf, someone shouted. The name spread like fire. Demonwolf! 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 And I let them chant. I didn't care what they called me. I had become exactly what the North needed right now and what South will fear. Aftermath. In total, 2,700 dead, reported Lord Glover, reading from a blood-stained ledger. Less than we feared, thanks to the sheer ferocity of our assault. Most were greybeards. The loss, while painful, is bearable. I nodded. And the wounded? Over 6,000. But, Lord George Mormont interjected, most will return to fight. They're recovering fast, some refuse to rest. They want to return to the front, to finish what they started. I couldn't help but smile. True Northmen, through and through. And Lord Roga? I asked. Alive, Georg said. No life-threatening wounds, but he won't be fighting again soon. Internal damage. He'll need time. Let him command from the rear with Glover when he recovers, I said. Lord Glover grinned. He'll complain like hell. He can mumble all he wants, I replied. He'll follow my command regardless. Laughter followed, the first true laughter since before the battle. I turned serious again. We'll rest and regroup near Harrenhal, but keep distance. Let's not expose ourselves. We are unaware of their loyalties. We'll position near the Isle of Faces. We don't yet know all our enemies' plans. Preparations will begin immediately, my lord, said Lord Wyman. Then Stig, quiet until now, smirked and spoke. You should visit my sister, Stark. You almost lost your mind in rage out there. Maybe a night with her would calm you down. Laughter burst again, this time at my expense. You should enjoy your youth while you have it, my lord, Wyman added, barely keeping a straight face. Leave the boring matters to us. Even I had to chuckle. At Riverrun. Ned Stark and Jonaran had made their alliance official. Ned wed to Catelyn Tully, Jon to her younger sister, Lisa. Sir Brynden Tully, the Blackfish, had taken command of 15,000 Riverland soldiers to support our cause, while others stayed behind to protect the region. Lord Hoster Tully entered the chamber with fresh news. The battle has occurred near Reach and Riverland's border. The North met the Reach in the field. 35,000 Reach soldiers. 20,000 Northmen. Ned's face paled. What happened? Who won? Jonaran's expression was equally grim. A loss here would shift the war dramatically. Hoster gave a smile, but it was complicated. The North won. And not just one, they slaughtered the Reach army. Survivors speak of demons of monsters. They call the northern host demons of the North. Your brother the demon of the North. Jonaran scoffed. Fleeing cowards always tell stories to justify their failure. But Sir Brynden Blackfish added, perhaps. But even northern men now call your brother the Demonwolf, Lord Stark. Ned sat silently, then said, call him whatever. What matters is this: my brother won. And with it, the North has given us the advantage. It gives us momentum, especially after Robert defeat. It was dangerous for them to go there. Chapter 12, Chapter 12. Chapter 12, Gift of the Old Gods. It had been some time since the battle. Our camp still smelled of blood and steel, but the air was quieter now, the groans of the wounded replacing the clash of arms. We rested, recovered, and counted the living. The northern lords gathered in council, maps and reports scattered across the table. Lord Glover, now in charge of the Reach prisoners, stood to speak. From the prisoners, I've learned troubling news, he began. Lord Robert has been defeated at Ashford. His host crushed by Lord Randall Tarley. Most of the Stormland's army has fallen back into their own lands now besieged by Tarly and the Reach. Rumor says Robert himself escaped in another direction, holed up in Stony September with barely 3,000 men left to his name. A bitter loss for our cause. Jeor Mormont leaned forward. Aye, but his failure is not the whole war. We broke the Reach in the field and hold their paramount lord in chains. The Stormlanders may be bottled up, but the Reach will trouble us no more, and that was the greatest threat to our cause. The lords murmured in agreement. I waited until the noise faded before speaking. We're in a strong position, but there's another matter: the fate of our prisoners. They cannot be pampered. We must decide their punishment. Tyrell will live. His value as a bargaining piece is too great, but the others. I see no reason they should walk free when this is done. We can't simply kill them all, one lord protested. No, Jeor Mormont said, stroking his beard. Those who can wield a sword, knights and lords, should take the black. The wall is always in need of strong men. The rest, well, the old gods may not mind if they meet the headsman's axe. I nodded. Aye. The weak and useless lords will be beheaded, save for Tyrell and a few of his kind. Lord Karstark frowned. Wouldn't it be dangerous to send so many enemies north? They'd be at our backs. Jeor Mormont looked around the table. Don't trouble yourself, Rickard. I'll be there. I've planned to take the black for some time. My son is grown and ready to lead Bear Island. At the wall, I'll keep them in line. A ripple of surprise moved through the lords. Are you certain? I asked. There are other arrangements we could make. I'd rather not see you sacrifice yourself needlessly. The old bear gave a rare smile. No sacrifice. Just purpose. This was always my path. Now it will serve the north twice over. The hall filled with murmurs of respect. Artos nodded his head towards Jeor in respect. Then it's settled, I said at last. See to your duties. One by one, the lords departed save for Lord Howland Reed. When we were alone, I leaned forward. Howland. I've heard you visited the Isle of Faces not long ago. He tilted his head warily. I went. But don't ask me what I saw. I swore an oath to the old gods never to speak of it. I understand. But I intend to go myself. I hoped you'd come with me, you know the way. Reed's expression hardened. I wouldn't advise it, Artos. The Isle isn't meant for outsiders, and it has no love for uninvited guests. I know the risk. But since we arrived here, I've felt drawn. As if the old gods themselves were calling. I hesitated, then fixed him with a steady look. Swear on the old gods you won't repeat what I'm about to tell you. Without pause, Reed swore. I am a warg, I said simply. I realized it during the battle. For a moment, he just stared, then a slow grin spread across his face. Then the old gods favor you more than most, my friend. He grew serious again. I'll take you there. But I will not set foot on the Isle again. I was allowed once, I won't presume twice. You'll have to cross alone. Even that is more than I hoped for. We leave tonight. River Run. In Lord Hoster's solar, the River Lords and the Vale's representatives gathered. We've raised 15,000 men, Hoster Tully said. My brother Brandon will lead them. Then we march, Jonaran declared. Robert and Artos both are vulnerable. If the crown strikes with a large host, they'll suffer heavy losses. We must move quickly. Eddard Stark nodded. Aye. The sooner we're in the field, the better. Later, as the host prepared to march, Catelyn Tully now Stark took her husband's hand. I will pray for your safe return, my lord. Ned embraced her briefly. And I will return to you as quickly as I can. Then he mounted and led the northern banners south. King's Landing. The Mad King raged in the Red Keep. The Reach are fools. Letting that traitor escape, bested by a green boy. They should burn for their incompetence. His eyes fell on his new hand, John Connington. I'll give you the chance to prove yourself worthy. Raise a host from the loyal lands. March to Stony September, kill Robert Baratheon. Bring me his head or I'll have yours. Connington bowed stiffly. As you command, your grace. I will lead the army myself. But in truth, his loyalty was not to the king. This was his chance to prove to Rhaegar Targaryen that he was the prince's greatest champion. If killing Robert would do it, so be it. The Isle of Faces. That night, I slipped from camp without a sound, meeting Howland Reed at the water's edge. A small boat waited. We rowed across the still black waters toward the isle. It was different. The air was thicker, the silence deeper. The weirwoods seemed to watch me before I'd even set foot ashore. At the bank, Reed stopped. This is where I leave you. The rest is between you and the old gods. I went on alone. What happened on that isle is not for any man to know, not even Howland Reed. Morning in the northern camp. Panic had begun to spread. My tent was empty, my guards baffled. Search parties were being prepared when someone spotted movement at the treeline. It was me walking back into camp alongside Reed. And in my arms was a great eagle. Not an ordinary bird. A massive beast, feathers streaked black and grey, eyes were grey like that of Stark. It radiated strength and coldness and something else. Intelligence. Those who came close swore it studied them in return, weighing them like a lord judging his bannermen. It was proud, moody, and near impossible to handle. Even I found myself struggling to master its moods. But it stayed with me. Beheading. Artos was in the open ground and was ready to announce the judgment and start beheading the prisoners of war. Should I do it, my lord? Lord George Mormont asked. No, my father has taught me to do it myself. A Stark should be the one who executes his own judgment. Artos. All of the prisoners were now in middle. One of them spoke. You can't do this to us. We are lords of our lands. They will never forgive you. Artos didn't blink an eye. We should be treated fairly. You should respect the laws, another said. We want a trial. One of them spoke. Artos flinches at that. Very well, my father wasn't given one nor my brother. But I will provide you with fair trial. He continues. You are prisoners of wars. You can only demand trial by combat. I will give you till evening. Choose your champion. Only one for you all. He would be fed good before fight and would be in optimal conditions. They thought over it and accepted. Northern lords groaned. It's war. It wasn't necessary, my lord. Artos silenced them all. My father wasn't given a fair trial. I shouldn't do the same. But either way's result will be same. Many Northmen and lords asked for to be a champion. A Stark fights his own battle. Artos says and silenced them. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 13, Chapter 13. Chapter 13 Sentence. The yard was silent except for the sound of steel being checked and boots scraping dirt. I stood waiting, the weight of the moment settling on my shoulders. This was no battlefield, this was judgment. The other side had chosen their champion. A knight. Probably famous somewhere, but I couldn't care less. At least give me armor, the man sneered. Or are you planning to kill a night bear as a peasant and call it a trial? You're a prisoner of the north, I said evenly. And this trial will be by northern tradition. No armor for either of us. Pick whatever weapon you think will save your life. He didn't like it, but he had no choice. When the fight began, I could tell in the first few exchanges he was good enough for a tourney maybe, not for me. He lunged, I parried. Steel clanged and slid. I read his style after a few passes. The moment his guard slipped, my sword came down in one clean stroke. His head hit the ground before his body did. It wasn't worth telling as a grand tale. The fight was over almost before it began. The rest were brought forward, kneeling in the cold dirt before me. Their eyes were defiant, frightened, or dead already. In the name of Lord Eddard of House Stark, Lord Paramount of Winterfell and Warden of the North, I, Artos of House Stark, acting commander of the Northern Army, sentence you to die. If you have last words, speak them now. None did. One by one, steel bit into flesh and bone. Quick work. We had no time to linger, war waits for no man's conscience. Later, I was in the sky. Not with wings of my own, but through Rick my eagle. Named after my father. The wind tore through his feathers, and my sight swept across leagues of land. It was freedom, but dangerous freedom, too easy to lose myself in him if I wasn't careful. That's when I saw them. King's Landing banners. Crownland's men on the march. Not a massive host, but enough, 10,000 at most, moving toward Stony September. Robert was there with only 3,000. He'd be crushed. I snapped back into myself, heart pounding. My lords, I told the Northern Council, prepare your men. We march at once. They stared at me, surprise, irritation. What's happened? Lord Karstark demanded. King's men are moving on Stony September, I said. Where did you hear this? Can we trust it? You'll have to take my word for it, I answered sharply. We move now. I'll send word to my brother, we'll crush them between us. Jeor Mormont spoke up. We still have wounded. Then the wounded stay, I said. Lord Roga, Lord Wyman, you'll hold here with 3,000-4,000 at most. The rest 7,000 ride with me. The Crownland's force isn't large. We'll break them. There were no more arguments. I wrote the letter for Ned, tied it to Rick's leg, and warged into him, guiding him through the air to find my brother. Eddard Stark. We were marching with 5,000 Northmen. I wrote among the heirs of our bannermen they'd have to learn war sooner or later. Then I saw him. A great eagle, arrow fast, cutting through the sky. One of my archers loosed a shot, but the bird twisted away with impossible speed, then landed before me. It had a letter bound to its leg. I raised a hand to hold my men back, untied the scroll, and read it. Artos's hand. His warning. His plan. The bird watched me with unsettling eyes. I muttered, half joking, will you wait a bit, boy? It nodded. I froze for a heartbeat, then called for a messenger. Send word to Lord Arryn and Sir Tully I need them now. And feed this eagle. No one touches a feather on him. When they arrived, I told them straight, the king's army is moving on Stony September, 10,000 men. Jon Arryn let out a breath. Better than we feared. How did you learn of this? My brother sent word. And how did he reach you? Sir Blackfish asked, baffled. He sent an eagle. They stared. We can discuss that later. His plan is to hit them from behind while we press from the front. A hammer and anvil. It'll work. Jon Arryn nodded. It's sound. But I think we can do better, I said. We're close enough to set a trap at the entrance to Stony September. Northmen and Valaman will hold the choke point. We let them push, then northern archers cut them down. When they're broken, Artos riders crash into them. Sir Blackfish's men sweep up the stragglers from sides. Fewer of ours die, more of theirs don't get back up. They agreed without hesitation. It will give them no place to retreat and will be killed fast and effectively. Sir Blackfish. I penned my reply to Artos, tied it to the eagle, and sent him back into the sky. John Connington. 10,000 men at my back, loyal to the dragon banner. The king had given me this chance. He will kill Robert Baratheon and prove my worth to the prince. We were close to Stony September. If they didn't yield, I'd burn the place to the ground. I will kill that rebel bastard with my own hands. Artos Stark. We shadowed the Crownlands column, keeping just far enough that they wouldn't see us. Rick returned, dropping into my arm. I fed him jerky before untying Ned's reply. I read it, smiled. My brother would make a fine commander. I called the lords together. My lords, new orders from Lord Eddard. Lord Reed, ready the archers. You'll control their fire. We'll cut into them first, then charge with the riders. The Northmen and Valaman will draw them toward us, straight into our kill zone. Every head nodded. Ned's plan was cleaner, safer, deadlier. And in war, that's all that mattered. I explained them the whole plan. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 14, Chapter 14. Chapter 14 Crown vs Rebellion. Robert Baratheon was still mending from Ashford, resting in his solar, when a soldier burst in. Lord Commander, a host is at our gates. Small, but led by Lord Stark and Lord Arryn. At once, Robert's grin split wide. His chosen brother, his foster father, finally here. He stood without hesitation. Take me to them. Patience was never Robert's way. When they met, his booming laugh filled the air. At last you're here. He wrapped both men in a crushing embrace. They returned it, though more reserved. You're well? Jon Arryn asked, concern in his voice. I heard you'd taken a wound. I'm whole, Robert said. Ready for war. That is good, Arryn replied, grave as always. We'll need you. Robert led them inside, but his brow furrowed as he counted heads. Why so few? Barely 6,000. Trouble in the north? Or in the Riverlands? Jon Arryn shook his head. No, both have answered well. More than expected, even. But the host you see here is deliberate. Robert looked puzzled until Ned spoke. I couldn't bring the north myself. Storms scattered me, I barely survived. But my brother Artos called the banners in my stead. He commands the bulk of the host now. He gave me 5,000 to march with Jon, while he turned south toward the Reach. Robert blinked, chewing on that. So most of the north follows a boy? And still these numbers are thin. Jon Arryn explained the situation, the Crown's army on the move, the trap already being laid. Robert frowned, doubtful. A trap, aye. But your brother, 15 name days at best? If he falters, if the north breaks, we'll be slaughtered. He won't falter, Jon Arryn said firmly. He's already fought and won. Outnumbered, he shattered the Reach host and took Mace Tyrell captive. That victory cut the Reach from the Crown. And it was Artos who discovered Connington's march in the first place. Without him, we'd be blind. Robert's jaw dropped, then he threw back his head and laughed. By the gods, Ned, you've got an interesting brother. Outnumbered and he wins? Takes Mace bloody Tyrell? What a Stark to have at your back. Ned only smiled. He's a Stark. That's enough. John Connington. 12 to 15,000 marched under my banners now. Men joined as we passed through the Crownlands, eager to prove loyalty to the king. I would repay their faith with victory. Stony September lay ahead, small, weak, and ripe for the taking. Prepare the men, I ordered. Knights carried my words down the lines. The army moved with the confidence of wolves closing on a lamb. A tiny town, flimsy walls, we would break them easily. We began the assault without hesitation. And walked straight into hell. Eddard Stark. From the woods we watched them. The traps were set, the men hidden, every bowstring drawn. "Hold," I commanded, my voice carrying steady. The crown's men advanced, oblivious. When they reached the mark, my hand rose. "Loose!" A storm of arrows answered. From the front, from the flanks the sky blackened, and men fell screaming in droves. The enemy wavered, stumbling under the storm. Now was the time to drive them back. "Forward!" I roared, leading Northmen and Valaman in the charge. Steel crashed against steel, and I cut down the first man before he could raise his shield. The line broke, blood and panic spilling with every blow. Dash! John Connington! A trap! Gods damn it! My men reeled under arrow fire, but we still had numbers. The losses were bloody, but not ruinous. I could salvage this. Better to pull back, regroup, strike again with order. "Retreat!" I bellowed, rallying knights to cover the withdrawal. We'd fall back, draw them out, bleed them on ground of my choosing. But fate had other plans. Dash! Artos Stark! Through Rick's eyes I saw it, my brother at the front, fighting like a true Stark of Winterfell. He was ice in the storm, cutting through men as though they were straw. Pride swelled in me. He would be a good lord. Then I saw it, the crown's banners pulling back. I blinked back into myself. Howland Reed stood beside me, waiting. "They're retreating," I told him. "Prepare the archers." He nodded and slipped away. I mounted, riding to the waiting host. My turn was coming. Dash! Howland Reed's men lay hidden, bows in hand, the air tight with anticipation. Reed raised his arrows. Draw! Strings pulled back. Loose! Thousands of shafts tore through the sky, raining down on weary, retreating men. Their relief turned to terror in an instant. Bodies fell like cut wheat. The trap had snapped shut. Dash! John Connington! What in the seven hells? One trap, then another. My retreat turned to slaughter. The men faltered, hope draining. I could see it, despair spreading like plague. "Hold fast!" I shouted, forcing steel into my voice. "We fight for the king. For the seven. For our prince." Some rallied, but it was thin resolve. And then I saw them, riders. Heavy cavalry thundering down, the ground shaking beneath their charge. Panic spread. The men screamed. This wasn't the rabble we expected. This was the whole rebellion, waiting for us. The intelligence had been wrong or betrayed. River Run, the north, the Vale, all here. Impossible, unless someone had whispered our march. Damn them all! Damn the king for his unpopularity, damn the traitors, damn this cursed field. But I still had a duty. For my silver prince. If I could cut down the rebel leaders, that northern boy, I could still turn this. Then the charge hit. Dash! You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 15, Chapter 15. Chapter 15. Artos Stark. The arrows struck first, darkening the sky before tearing into the enemy lines. Men screamed as shafts slammed into flesh, scattering their formations. Chaos rippled through them, spines breaking beneath the weight of fear. Now came the final blow. I steadied myself, tightening my grip on the spear. Snow, my warhorse, was restless beneath me, but the bond between us ran deeper than reins or spurs. Our minds were one. I did not need to guide him, he felt me, as I felt him. Winter is coming. The words tore from my throat like a warhorn, and snow surged forward, thousands of hooves thundering behind us. The northern cavalry roared like wolves let loose, sweeping down in waves of steel and fury. We slammed into the enemy lines. Their commander had rallied them, I could see that. They held tighter ranks now, a spark of hope flickering, but it meant nothing. Hope shatters beneath northern steel. The charge ripped through them like an axe through kindling. Spears impaled men clean off their feet, swords carved, horses trampled, shields splintered. I thrust my spear, again and again, until it shattered on a man's chest with a crack. Blood spattered my mail, hot and viscous. Without pause, I drew my sword and cut down the next screaming knight who dared stand in Snow's path. Dozens fell. Perhaps hundreds. I hardly counted. And then I saw him. A knight in bright armor, commanding and fierce, cutting down Northmen with sharp precision. His stance, the way men rallied to him, this was their leader. Jon Connington. The hand of the king. I urged Snow toward him, snatching up a heavy lance from a fallen man. He turned to me, saw me coming, and spurred his warhorse forward. A duel born of chaos, two lines converging, two wills colliding. We met like justers, wood splintering, iron screaming. Our first passes left only rents in armor, shallow blows in steel, no death, only fury. We wheeled again, blow after blow, before both knew this would not be settled in the saddle. We dismounted. I sent Snow away with a command whispered silently to his mind. He obeyed, circling but safe, waiting for me. I am Jon Connington, the knight declared, voice grim. Hand of the king. I said nothing. His words carried no weight with me. You are young, he continued, his sword raised in ready guard. Your face, your eyes. Stark, no doubt. There's no need for you to die so foolishly. Surrender now. Bend the knee and live. With Brandon dead, with your brother's rebellion breaking, I could grant you Winterfell, the north itself. Stark blood need not vanish. Serve the crown, and be spared. His words sickened me. Did he think I was some grasping traitor, willing to barter my honor and kin for a crown not mine to claim? My grip tightened on the hilt. My voice was cold iron. I will kill you, and send your head to your king. We clashed. Steel rang against steel, each strike meant for death. He was the more seasoned fighter, I could tell, his footing measured, his counters sharp. But I was faster. Stronger. My size misled him. Men of my build relied on brute force, he expected it. But my style was speed, sharp, relentless. Every stroke pressed him harder, every feint found him slower to respond. His eyes betrayed his surprise. Jon Connington's thoughts, I could almost see them. The hand of the king, famed bladesman, struggling before a boy of the north. He shifted, began feinting, showing false gaps in his guard, baiting me. He wanted me careless. One slip, and I would fall. I saw it for what it was. Instead, I struck faster. My blade sang in a storm, hammering his right side, unbalancing him. His footing faltered. That single misstep spelled his doom. With one sudden swing, my steel tore deep across his neck. Blood fountained, hot and dark, spraying down his mail. He fell, gasping, clawing at the wound, screaming hoarsely as his lifeblood poured away. His strength broke, his eyes, once proud, flashed only terror. I stood over him, stone-faced, and watched as his body failed him. Slowly, so slowly, he drowned in his own blood, until silence took him. The northern cavalry raged unchecked. Enemy lines shattered, cries of panic filling the field. Horses thundered on, manes streaked with blood, their riders like wraiths. Some said we northerners were demons that day, we were. Everywhere, broken men fled. Everywhere, death pursued. From the other side, the river lords struck. Sir Brynden Blackfish Tully drove his men into the enemy's rear, cutting them down without quarter. Stragglers, deserters, none escaped his command. The Blackfish showed no mercy. 7 hells, Brynden muttered as he witnessed the northern charge sweep across the battlefield. They tore through the foe like hail on dry grass, cruel and unstoppable. No feigned chivalry, no pretenses of gallantry. Only killing. He watched their young commander, a Stark boy, no, a Stark man, riding at the vanguard as though fused to his steed. Snow carried him like shadow. Artos Stark killed with precision, with purpose, scything through lives as though counting meant nothing. Brandon's breath caught when he saw him face Jon Connington. The hand of the king, one of the realm's most skilled knights, facing a stripling commander. Fear prickled him that boy would be struck down. But it was otherwise. He watched, stunned, as Artos slew Connington with ruthless swiftness, leaving him writhing to die slow. Brandon grimaced. A clean death had been denied. Demons of the North, the Reachmen called them. The name fit. When the field quieted, corpses lay thick as snowdrifts. Northern cavalry, faces and steel streaked with red, looked less like men and more like shades returned from the grave. I stood in the ruin. Broken men surrendered, few were left alive to do so. My own losses were far lighter, for once advantage had been ours, utterly. Through the haze of smoke and blood, Sir Brandon Tully rode to me. His armor bore no less slaughter, though his eyes were keen. I am Sir Brandon Tully, he said, dismounting, brother to Hoster Tully, Lord Paramount of the Riverlands. I am Artos Stark, brother to Lord Eddard Stark, Warden of the North. Brandon's gaze flicked to the corpse of Jon Connington. You didn't have to kill him so ruthlessly, he said quietly. A clean death, you could have granted him that. I looked him in the eye, my voice cold as winter stone. They stood silent while my father and brother burned. Why should I spare theirs? They gave me no mercy. I owe them none. Brandon exhaled slowly. He knew convincing me otherwise was folly. Too much pain, too much loss. What's done is done, he murmured. Your brother and the other lords will be gathering soon, to speak of the battle and what comes after. Join us. In time, I replied, my eyes searching the bloody field. First I see to my men. You like the work, please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 16, Chapter 16. Chapter 16 War Camp and Soldiers. The War Council met in a small command tent. Only 5 sat within, Robert Baratheon, Jon Arryn, Brandon Tully, Eddard Stark, and Artos Stark. The air reeked of tallow and sweat, heavy with the weight of death yet to come. Artos spoke first, voice flat and cold. The northern cavalry lost fewer than 800. We still have strength enough. Brandon Tully followed. The Riverlands were little-blooded this time. We lost perhaps 500. Eddard's tone was grimmer. My main force bore the weight of it. The North lost 700 dead, the Vale, 1500. Jon Arryn inclined his head at the tally. Costly, yes, but the enemy suffered tenfold. The war bleeds them dry faster than us. Still, new levies are being raised in the Crownlands. A great host gathers even now. The Vale has 8,000 men left fit for battle. Robert leaned forward, sour ale on his breath, his voice a growl. So the Targaryens finally dare fight like men, not hide behind their bloody banners. I have 3,000 here. My strength in the Stormlands remains cut off, pinned by Randyll Tarly. Artos gave his measure coldly. The North marches with 20,000 still. Count those with Ned's host. The River Lords field 14,000, said Brandon. Minus the phrase, who find reasons to delay. I'd not hold my sword waiting on them. Total settled. Eddard gave the grim count. 45,000. Strong, but the king's army will be greater still, even before the Lannisters commit. Robert's eyes burned. His hand tightened on the great hammer at his side. Numbers? Ha! Let him bring 50,000, let him bring 100. I'll split their skulls open just the same. Jonaran's calm voice followed. Robert is right in one regard, wars are won not only by numbers, but by momentum. And momentum is ours. We have won every battle save Ashford. And even there, the reach is tied and bleeding. Eddard's frown deepened. Even victories come at a cost, John. Too much blood spills at each turn. Perhaps, Brandon agreed, folding his arms. But blood is war's only coin. If we shrink from the price, we lose. The tent fell into a grim stillness. War never sounded as gallant in tally as it did in song. Artos broke that silence, his jaw hard. This is the part I cannot stomach. Numbers. Stores. Roads. All this talk. I have no place here. The tent stirred. Even Robert looked up from his cup. My brother commands the north, Artos continued. Let him see to it. From this day, I leave such matters to Ned. I'll be with the men. Fighting, where I belong. Ned frowned. You can stay, Artos. You've won battles before. Your counsel matters. My counsel is a sword arm, Artos answered. What good am I when you need men of patience to count bales of grain and plan marches months ahead? That is not me. I'll serve with the soldiers, and when the fighting starts, I'll lead them. Leave the thinking to you. For the first time, Ned laughed in the council, the sound startling in the heavy air. That's the brother I remember. The bullhead who never cared for books or maps. Go then. Enjoy the camp. Rest for once. Artos nodded and rose. Jonaran asked, cautious, is it wise to let him leave? His victories might yet shape our plans. Ned's smile was faint. He only sat here out of duty to me. He hates these walls, these talks of stores and rations. He's a soldier, not a chess player of war. Brandon raised him wild, heart first. That cannot be unlearned. Brandon gave a gruff nod. He's no commander of men from tables or parchments. But out there, in the mud, with a blade in hand, he's well suited. Let him be. Robert laughed, red-faced and booming. By the gods, I like the lad. He's a true warrior. Not one of these ink-fingered lords, but a man of blood and iron. John ignored Robert's grin and turned the maps again. Let us return to planning, then. He will play his part. Now we must play ours. In the soldiers' camp. By the time Artos left the council, night fires dotted the camp like fallen stars. Men from every land sat together, northerners sharpening blades beside Vale archers, river lords sharing bread with Stormlanders. The air was heavy with smoke, laughter, weeping, and the endless retelling of war stories. They spoke of Robert's hammer at Gulltown, of his escape from Tarly's trap. But one tale eclipsed all others, the Battle of Demons. The victory of the North against the Reach had grown in the telling. Twice their number, yet still cut down. The cavalry like wraiths, the corpses in heaps, the fields soaked dark. Soldiers swore the Northerners were not men at all, but monsters clothed in steel. And above all stood Artos Stark, the demon of the North. Some called him the Demonwolf. His name slipped through the campfires of half a dozen kingdoms, and even men who had never seen him swore they dreamed of him riding, bloody and relentless. Artos walked the camp with three of his sworn companions, Bert and Hal, the grizzled twins of his guard, and Stig with his sister, Ye. When they came to a great circle of northern soldiers, he stepped forward. The men rose hastily. One stammered. "My lord, do you bring us orders?" "No," Artos said flatly. "Only myself." The men looked uncertain. "But, you are commander." "Not anymore." Artos cut him off with a half-smile. "Ned, my brother, commands the north. I am just a soldier, as you are. So give me some space by the fire." The mood lightened, laughter stirred. They shifted aside eagerly, and Artos sat hard on the ground, pulling Ya into his lap without hesitation. She leaned against him easily, used now to his fierce nearness. "Well then," Artos said, taking a cup of mead and swallowing. "Tell me what's spoken in the camps." "Stories. Slaughter. Who killed more than who?" The men obliged, voices loosening with drink. "Stories of spears that took 3 men in one thrust, of knights split clean by axes." Soon enough, one spoke in awe. "The truth is, my lord, the tale most told, is of you." Artos nearly choked on his drink. "Me? I," the soldier grinned. "Everywhere. Even Stormlanders and River Lords mutter your name. They call you the Demon of the North. Say you ride with a host of demons. And..." He lowered his voice, "some say they've made a song of it." Artos snorted, eyes narrowing. "A song? About you, my lord," another answered. "Demonwolf." The circle grew silent, except for the crackling fire. At last, one man lifted his voice, low and rough, and sang as others hushed to hear not a courtly melody, but the raw, haunting chant of soldiers carrying both fear and pride. "Demon of the North. He rides in the dark when the horn calls for war. The ground shakes with thunder, the dead rise once more. No mercy, no quarter, no prayers to be told. The Demon of the North comes to reap your soul. His blade drinks deep, his spear bites fast. The howl of his horse is the sound of the past. From head to heel, blood makes him whole. The Demon of the North comes to reap your soul. Where torches burn red and the rivers run black. He rides with his demons, and none come back. They say even the gods avert their control. The Demon of the North comes to reap your soul. So tremble in darkness, and curse what you fear. A wolf in the saddle, the end drawing near. For legion is with him, and damnation his goal. The Demon of the North comes to reap your soul." When the song ended, silence lingered. Faces glowed with firelight, a mixture of awe, dread, and pride. Artos only sat still, stone-eyed, his weight heavy against him. He drank again, but in his heart there was no laughter. Only the knowledge that he had become a tale. A song. A demon in men's mouths. Whether he willed it or not, the name would never leave him. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 17, Chapter 17. Chapter 17 Gathering. The host marched, their banners rippling beneath a grey sky. They gathered all the remaining of the armies of the north, the riverlands and the vale which were left behind, drawn into a single host of steel and blood. It had been more than 9 moons since Artos Stark heard about the news of his father and brother death. And Lyanna taken. Ever since, he had drowned his grief onto war. He fought without mercy and killing had become his respite, his hunger his only solace for the grief. The men are calling him a demon now. Enemies spat the word in fear. His own soldiers sang of him in the night, a cruel story of the demon of the north who reap souls by the sword. Artos paid it no mind. The songs meant nothing. Fear, however, meant everything. Fear made men kill quicker, march further, and obey without question. It is an advantage that he would cherish. Some ideas already flourishing in his mind. "Bert," Artos called, reining in his horse. One of the twins, among his fiercest and most loyal men, rode forward. "My lord," Bert answered. "What do you make of it?" "The songs. The name they give me." Bert spoke with the bluntness he knew Artos appreciated. "The men believe victory certain so long as the demon of the north leads them. They fight without hesitation, kill without fear. With the greybeards and the mountain clans fighting at front lines behind you, men burn with more wildness. But it validates the rumors to what the southerners think of us." Artos snorted. "Let them think whatever they want to. Let them choke on their own tails. Our foes will learn soon enough what it means when their lies become truth. Their fear and rumors will be best used to make them fear us more. It's not they are gonna change their opinion of us anyways. It's not like we give a fuck. Bert only shook his head, a ghost of a smile curling his lips. Hal, the other twin, rode up from the rear. My lord. The men make camp here for the night. Lord Eddard bids you to the war tent tonight. There's to be talk of importance matters. Artos sighed, running a hand across his face. 7 hells. I'd thought, with Ned here, I might be spared such meetings. The twins smirked at their lord's sourness. Bert began, if Lord Eddard himself asks it. He fell silent at the cold flash of Artos's eyes. Tell Ned I will come. Will come. Artos will not refuse Ned when this is a time family need to stick together. Hal spurred off to relay the words, while Bert lingered, silent at his lord's side as the campfires flared in the dusk. The war tent. The tent was thick with smoke and the weight of men's tempers. Jonaran stood grave, voice measured. Word comes that Rickard has returned. He will command the royal host himself. The words cracked like a whip across the table. Artos's breath stilled, his jaw clenching, rage rising dark in his eyes as if something old and buried had clawed to the surface again. He said nothing, but the silence around him grew heavier for it. Eddard Stark's face hardened in quiet fury, his anger colder but no less sharp. Brynden Tully only folded his arms, calm in the way of an old soldier who had seen too many such counsels to waste his spirit on rage. He has enough experience to not mix his emotions with war talks, and he has no big emotional baggage in this to falter. But Robert Baratheon thundered, slamming a fist against the oaken table. At last the craven comes out to face me. I'll smash him with my hammer, and the 7 kingdoms will see the fury of a Baratheon. Rickard stole what was mine, I'll see him pay for it in blood. Artos nearly scoffed, bitter and low. Robert, with all his bluster. He claimed Lyanna for love, yet spoke of her name, yet dragging her honor through the mud night after night, even now. That was love? No. It was hunger. Possession. Artos told himself one truth, again and again, Lyanna was his sister. His blood. She had raised him as one mother would. Her honor, her life, would not be Robert's to sully, not while Artos drew breath. If the dragons fell, if gods were just, he would take her north again, and woe to Baratheon or any man who set hand or eye upon her. For now, though, there was only war. Where will this battle be fought? Artos asked, his voice low and cold. Jonaran answered, most likely at the Trident. We march upon King's Landing, Rickard will come north to guard it. Artos nodded once. Then the north will be ready to slaughter the dragons. Jon hesitated, weary eyes falling to him. Artos, you will not command the main host. I care not for commands, Artos replied. So long as I kill the one who dared steal my sister. Jon pressed on. You are to lead the side flank, half the northern host. Your presence there will give us. The crack of wood silenced him. Artos's fist had smashed through the war table, splinters scattering to the rushes. I will not march to the side whilst some other man takes the head of the dragon. Lyanna was my sister. I will kill him with my own hands. Robert grinned, too eager by half. Fear not, wolf. I'll slay him for you and for her. Rickard will feel the weight of my wrath first. Artos turned, voice like ice. I don't need you to kill for me. This is my sister he wronged. My sister honor he defiled. The air grew taut, fire in Artos's gaze. For a heartbeat Robert almost answered, but Eddard spoke instead, voice steady as winter stone. Artos. This is no duel, but war. Your place is with your men, on the flank. The army needs you there. The greybeards, the clans, the northerners, they will fight the fiercer with you beside them. This is Father and Brandon we avenge, and Lyanna we seek. Your duty is clear. Do not dishonor them with reckless pride and stubbornness. Artos's knuckles whitened. Again his hand struck the oak, smashing a deeper gouge in the wood before he turned and strode from the tent like a storm breaking loose. None moved to halt him. None dared. Only when silence returned did Eddard speak, voice quiet but weary. I will speak to him. Jon, go on with the plans. Jonaran gave a slow nod, while Robert scowled into the dark, and Brynden Tully only shook his head, the calmest man among them as the weight of war loomed on the Trident's waters. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 18, Chapter 18. Chapter 18, Psychological Warfare. The rage had taken Artos like wildfire, and he knew better than to let his men see it. He stalked from the war tent into the cold night air, seeking the darkness where he might vent his fury without witness. But Bert and Hal shadowed him still, keeping their distance as wise men do when wolves bare their teeth. They had served him long enough to know the signs, the way his jaw worked, the tremor in his sword hand. This was not a time for words or comfort. Even so, they worried. They exchanged glances in the gloom, remembering other nights when their lord's wrath had turned inward, eating at him like poison. Relief washed over them when they glimpsed Lord Eddard approaching through the moonlight, his footsteps sure despite the darkness. Artos sat hunched beneath an old oak, its gnarled branches stretching overhead like skeletal fingers. When Eddard's shadow fell across him, he did not look up. Artie. The name came soft, weighted with the affection of shared blood and bitter winters. Why do the old gods mock me so, brother? Artos's voice cracked like a boy's, stripped of the iron that men had learned to fear. I cannot even defend her honor. Cannot even avenge what was done to Lyanna. Eddard settled beside him on the cold earth. You defend her honor with every sword stroke, every battle won. Father and Brandon too. The dead cry out for justice, and we shall give it to them, but cleverly, Artie. We must be wolves, not mad dogs. A ghost of a smile touched Artos's lips. You sound more like father each day. A true lord of Winterfell. Don't start with your japes now, Eddard said, though warmth crept into his tone. I can still thrash you, lord or no lord. Artos laughed then, a sound rusty with disuse, and pulled his brother into an embrace that spoke of desperate love and shared grief. I'll follow your lead, brother, he murmured. Pray the old gods you know what you're about. Speaking of gods, Eddard stepped back, studying his brother's frame. They've blessed you well enough. You're tall as Brandon was, maybe taller. War has made a giant of you. The old gods have been generous. Artos touched the pommel of his sword unconsciously. Eddard's expression grew solemn as he retracted ice, the Valyrian steel catching starlight like captured winter. I would have you carry this. Artos recoiled as if struck. Brother, no. Ice belongs with the Lord of Winterfell. As it has for thousands of years. And what use is it sheathed at my side? Eddard's laugh was bitter. I'm no giant. This blade is too long, too heavy for a man of my build. But you. He held it out, and the steel seemed to hum with anticipation. Cregan Stark wielded ice in battle. Made himself a legend with it. Perhaps it's time the South remembered why men fear the wolves of Winterfell. Artos took the ancient blade with reverence, feeling its perfect balance. I'll not dishonor it. You couldn't if you tried. The demon of the north needs a blade worthy of his reputation. Eddard's eyes glinted. And yes, I've heard the songs. Half the army's singing them. You mock me. Not mock. Wonder. Eddard studied his brother's face in the pale light. Tell me, what schemes are brewing behind those eyes? You've that look father got when he was planning something. Artos hesitated, then spoke slowly. I've been thinking on reputation. On fear as a weapon. He met his brother's gaze. I would have new banners made. A different sigil. Not the grey dire wolf of Stark. A dire wolf still, but... Artos's voice dropped. A demon wolf. Black as winter's heart, with eyes cold like winter. Let our enemies see what they face and despair before the battle's even joined. Eddard was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried equal parts admiration and unease. My brother talks of the minds of men and wars fought before swords are drawn. You've grown wise, Artie. Or perhaps only harder. The songs name me demon, Artos said simply. Why not use what they give me? Do as you will. But remember. Eddard gripped his shoulder. I still see the boy who cried when his first horse died. Don't lose him entirely to this war. Artos smiled, but it was a wolf's smile, all teeth and shadow. That boy died when father did. What remains serves the north. After Eddard left, Artos returned to his tent where Ya waited, naked beneath furs black as her hair. She watched him with the calculating eyes of a wildling, noting his mood. You seem less likely to break things now, she observed. Yea, he said, settling beside her. I need banners made. New ones. She laughed, low and throaty. Our tradition taught me to fight and fuck, not stitch like some southern lady. Though. Her hand traced patterns on his chest. I might know someone who could manage it. For a price. And what price would that be? Her smile was all predator. The same price I always demand. The war council convened at first light, the northern lords arrayed around rough-hewn tables. Steam rose from their breath in the cold air as Eddard laid out the battle plan with practiced authority. My lords, we divide our strength by design, not weakness. I'll command the main host while Artos leads the flank. Each force shall serve its purpose. Lord Glover frowned. Is it wisdom to split our power? The dragons have numbers enough without us making their task easier. We are Starks, Eddard replied, steel in his voice. For 8,000 years we have held the north. We shall not break now, not when father's bones cry out for justice. Artos spoke into the silence that followed. We'll crush those who took your rightful lord and his heir from you. The dragons will learn why the north remembers. Yoram Mormont straightened. House Mormont stands with Stark. Command us, and we obey. The Great Yon goes with Artos, Eddard announced. Along with the Umbers, mountain clans, and Skagosi. The rest ride with me. Lord Roga Umber's weathered face split in a grin. About time I got back to the real fighting. These old bones still have. You'll remain with my brother, my lord, Artos cut him off smoothly. My brother has need of your wisdom in his counsels. The old lord's face darkened. I'm a fighter, not a. You're a lord of the north, Artos said firmly. And you'll serve where you're needed most. The young ones can handle the dying for now. The tent erupted in chuckles, even Roose Bolton's pale lips twitching upward. The jest had landed perfectly respectful enough to save the old lord's pride while making the command clear. The Great Yon laughed loudest of all. Don't worry, father. I'll keep this one from doing anything too stupid. Assuming you can keep up with me, John, Artos shot back, earning more laughter. When the mirth died down, Eddard's expression grew grave. One final matter. Lord Artos will fight beneath his own banner for this campaign. Every eye turned to Artos. The Great Yon leaned forward eagerly. What's the sigil? A dire wolf. Confused murmurs rippled through the gathered lords. Artos let the moment stretch before continuing. A demonic dire wolf. Black as the void. The silence that followed was profound. Then the Great Yon began to laugh, not the hearty chuckle from before, but something wilder, hungrier. The sound spread to the mountain clan chiefs, to Stig of the Skagosi, to old Roga himself. Finally, the Great Yon roared. Finally embracing what you are, wolf. The sight of it alone will have half their army pissing themselves, Stig observed with dark satisfaction. "Aye," rumbled one of the mountain chiefs. "The demon of the north rides to war at last." Even Roose Bolton nodded approvingly. "Psychological warfare. Clever. Fear can break men before they ever draw steel." Artos looked around the circle of grinning, savage faces and felt something settle in his chest. These were his wolves, his pack. And together they would paint the south red with dragon blood. "Then it's settled," Eddard said quietly. "May the old gods preserve us all." But as Artos met his brother's eyes, he wondered if the gods had already chosen their favorites in the game to come. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 19, Chapter 19. Chapter 19 Battle of the Trident. Artos Stark. At last, we stand upon the banks of the Trident. At last, the hour comes when we will meet and blood will decide which house endures. Tomorrow there will be fire and steel. Their scouts say they are 60,000 strong, more men than we can muster, though we are 45,000 hardened by victory and we are bound by purpose. Numbers mean little when a host falters, and Rhaegar's host already bleeds. The reach is tangled in the storm lands, and Lord Mace Tyrell sits chained in my camp. The lion of Casterly Rock still slumbers, weighing whether to bare its teeth, but that worry belongs to another day. Win here, and the game is ended. Lose, and nothing else matters. I have claimed the right flank. My choice, not commands. Barristan the Bold himself leads the King's Mirror opposite, with more men and more banners. That is where the fight will be fiercest, where the ground must be held at any cost. Many who burned with my kin at King's Landing now stand across the river, it is fitting that I face them myself. I know this because I warged into Rick. Through his eyes, their movements were laid bare to me. Ned pressed me for answers when I told him, his brow furrowed with suspicion on how I got this information, but in the end, he trusted. He always does. He worried I sought death, that I threw myself upon the greater danger to atone for ghosts only I recall. Yet I convinced him. The duty falls to me, always to me. Such is the way of Starks. Ice feels well in my hands. Not the familiar long sword but heavier, longer, though my size makes the great sword no greater than a blade was meant to be. Valyrian steel, it sings lighter than any steel forged in Winterfell's smithies, quick as thought in the cut, and it lends me reach no man of the king's side shall match tomorrow. I am ready. Ready to kill, or to die. Whatever the old gods have written for my destiny. Third POV. Battle of the Trident. Both sides were ready to fight. There wasn't even a parley between them. Hate is still burning in the purest form. Robert Baratheon, Eddard Stark, and Sir Blackfish are in the main force, standing tall with their forces. Ready to attack at any of time. Jon Arryn is in charge of the reserves and ready to counter any changes or any plans during the battle. He the overall commander of the battle. Left flank is being commanded by Royce's loyal followers of Arryn. They are the most famous knights in the Seven Kingdoms. They are capable of competing with any force. Artos Stark is standing with his 8,000 men made up of greybeards, mountain clans, Skagosi, Umbers, and tall hearts. Banners of the demonic dire wolf is flying and flaring among them. Artos Stark is going to give a last speech before going in the battlefield. He is in his horse at the front of the marching men. Artos Stark, men of the north. We are finally here to avenge our lord and his heir that was taken from you. The hope of surviving the harsh winters was taken from you. He continued, time for war has come. Now is the time for us warriors to shout our war cries. Time for war has come. It's time to put either your pride or your life into blades and arrows. It's time to tell the southern bastards that we are Northmen, true descendants of the first men. We will show them that we are warriors. With our will we will take lives or give ours if need be. War is our time. War is where we show and prove who is the true warrior. Death is not the end for us. We will fight till the old gods meet us. Forget the mercy, remember the pride of the North. We not know defeat. Victory is the only way for the true warrior. For the Northerner. Winter is coming. A raw emotion can be seen on every single of the warriors. All ready to kill the enemies or die trying. All ready to show they were the fiercest warriors among them. With that emotion they all shouted. Winter is coming. Artos, don't stop until they all are dead. Mercy is not an option. Death is the only way. Blood is the only way. Winter is coming. Winter is coming. With that shout all men ready to march into battle. Then started the most brutal and grueling and cruel battle of the war. Even in the history, this will come out as the most brutal battle after the conquest. 8,000 men's no demons killing and slaughtering the 12,000 men. Out of 20,000 men only 6,500 men survived. Artos and greybeards marched to kill the enemies. The battle. The two hosts met upon a wide plain, steel flashing beneath a grey sky. At first glance, the odds favored the Crown's army, 12,000 men, banners snapping, drums rolling, and Baristan the bold and seasoned commanders shouting orders down the lines. Starks, only 8,000 strong, stood silent, grim, and strangely calm, the stillness of wolves before the hunt. When the horns blew, Artos and greybeards surged forward. The old warriors led the charge, scarred men in their 40s who had marched to the field with no hope of returning. They locked shields, advanced as one, and crashed into enemies' front line like a hammer against soft wood. North was brutal and merciless. They did not fight to survive, they fought to kill. Their screams and unrelenting ferocity tore through Crown ranks, spreading fear faster than swords could cut. At first, dragon-side commanders tried to hold order. Their voices carried across the din, rallying their soldiers into defensive formations. But the common men, many untested in true battle, felt their courage falter. They had never seen enemies who sought death, who smiled through blood and pressed forward even when their comrades fell. The men laughing in the battlefield. The lines bent, then buckled. The old warriors of North died by the hundreds, but they dragged 10 men down with every fall, and their blood only stained the ground for the berserkers behind them. Soon the center of Crown's army started to collapse, men throwing down shields, turning to flee. The commanders tried to stem the tide, but fear spread like fire in dry grass. Once the rout began, North showed no mercy. They hunted the fleeing soldiers, cutting down thousands as they ran. Artos in his horse snow riding in the battlefield like a demon. Killing men like nothing. His almost 6 feet Valyrian sword killing more than one man in one swing. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 20, Chapter 20. Chapter 20. Demons are bloody. The greybeards were in their element. Old men with weathered faces and scarred hands, swinging axes and spears with no thought for their own lives. They cut through men as if the years had only sharpened their hate, not dulled their strength. They were laughing as they kill the enemies of North. Artos fought in the thick of it, ice in hand, every swing tearing flesh and steel apart. He carved a path through the enemy when his eyes caught sight of a knight on horseback, broad-shouldered, armored in polished steel, a plume shaking as he reined his mount hard. The man's bearing marked him as one of command, not some nameless soldier or knight. The knight's gaze fixed on him. His lip curled. "You've the look of a Stark boy," he called out above the din, voice sharp as steel. "I am Sir Alliser Thorne. Call off your men. Surrender, and I'll see you spared. I'll speak to the prince himself, he'll grant you Winterfell." Artos froze for the briefest heartbeat, the words like bile in his throat. Did the Southerners truly believe Northerners so weak? To sell blood for stone? To betray kin for a lordship? Rage flared hot in his chest. "You can go fuck yourself," Artos spat, spurring snow forward. He charged. Thorn jerked his reins, but too late. Artos's swing slammed into the knight's shield with the force of a hammer, and the blow toppled horse and rider alike. The knight crashed to the mud, cursing, scrambling up as Artos slid from Snow's saddle, ice gleaming in his hands. Steel hissed free. Thorn's long sword caught the morning light, his stance disciplined, sharp. "I gave you a chance, boy," the knight sneered, raising his blade. "Hope you don't die too quickly." Artos didn't bother with words. He came on fast, ice sweeping down in a brutal arc. Thorn met it with a ringing parry that numbed Artos's arm. The knight pressed, thrusting quick and precise, forcing Artos back a step. He was no green man. His blade moved with the confidence of years of training. But ice was no common steel. Despite its size, the Valyrian blade moved as though it hungered for blood, light and swift in Artos's grip. He swung again, sparks flying as the two blades crashed together. Thorn grunted, the force driving him back. They circled in the mire, steel flashing, boots slipping in the churned mud. Strike, parry, counter, blades ringing like bells of war. Artos felt the rhythm, felt the knight's timing, the way his guard dipped ever so slightly after each thrust. Thorn lunged, his sword scraping past Artos's ribs by an inch. That was his mistake. Artos pivoted, brought ice down in a savage cleave that tore through the knight's pauldron and bit deep into his shoulder. Thorn staggered, gasping, blood spilling down his armor. He tried to lift his sword again, but his arm shook, strength faltering. Artos did not hesitate. Ice sang as it swept through the air, the black-red mud leaping with the spray. Thorn's head parted from his shoulders in one clean stroke, toppling into the muck. His body crumpled beside it, twitching once, then still. Breath misted in Artos's throat as he stared down at the corpse. Another bastard slain, another fool who thought the Starks would sell their honor cheap. The battle raged on around him, but for that heartbeat, all he heard was the quiet hum of ice, pleased with its feast. Dash! The mud beneath Artos Stark's boots had turned to crimson paste, a mixture of blood and earth that spoke of northern fury unleashed. At the spearhead of his army, he carved through the enemy center like a blade through silk, ice singing its steel song with each killing stroke. Behind him, his Northmen fought not as disciplined soldiers but as the very demons their foes named them, howling, relentless, drenched in gore that was not their own. The sight that greeted the enemy was one from their darkest nightmares. Demonic dire wolf banners snapped in the wind above warriors who seemed to have crawled from the seven hells themselves. Men pissed themselves at the sight, some dropping their weapons to flee rather than face the northern charge. The acrid stench of fear-loosened bowels mingled with the copper tang of blood on the wind. Demons! The cry echoed across the battlefield, passed from mouth to terrified mouth. Demon of the North! Demonwolf! Their commander screamed orders that went unheeded by men too terrified to stand. Fear was a living thing now, spreading through their ranks like wildfire. Artos smiled grimly through his helm's visor. Let them fear. Fear would break them faster than any sword. From the reserve position atop a low hill, Prince Lewin Martell of the King's Guard watched his allies' right flank crumble like a sandcastle before the tide. Beside him, another white-cloaked figure shook his head in something approaching admiration. It seems the rumors have some truth in them, the knight observed, his voice carrying the measured tone of a man who had seen many battles. The Northmen truly fight like demons. Not that I blame them for it. Prince Lewin's dark eyes followed the flow of battle, reading it like a maester might read a text. Prepare the men, he commanded, his voice cutting through the din of distant combat. We are going to trap these demons that men fear to speak of. Behind him, 1,000 of Dorne's finest spearmen began their advance, bronze-tipped weapons glinting like serpents' fangs in the afternoon sun. They moved with the fluid precision of vipers, seeking to encircle the northern right and crush the wolf between hammer and anvil. High above the battlefield, Rick's keen eyes showed Artos the ebb and flow of combat spread beneath him like a bloody tapestry. The north held advantage everywhere save for one deadly pocket where a white-cloaked figure moved through his men like death-given form. Each swing of the knight's blade was poetry written in blood, and Artos recognized that fluid grace even from this distance. Sir Barristan Selmy. The sight of the legendary knight carving through his men like wheat before the scythe sent ice through Artos's veins. He watched as brave Umbers charged toward the White Knight, axes raised high in feudal defiance. They were good men, loyal men, but they would die if he did not act. Against Barristan the Bold, courage alone would not suffice. "Snow," he called, and his massive horse materialized at his side, silver-grey fur bristling with the scent of coming violence. The beast's eyes held an intelligence that was almost human, and together they began their descent toward the melee. But movement caught his attention, a glint of bronze in his peripheral vision that made his blood run cold. Prince Lewin Martell emerged from the press of his spearmen, and Artos cursed under his breath. The Dornish prince had timed his approach perfectly, cutting off Artos's path to Selmy while his men were still engaged with the enemy center. Relief flooded through him as familiar figures appeared at his flanks. Bert and Hal, the inseparable twins whose loyalty had never wavered, led a wedge of howling Skagosi warriors to his aid. Their war cries predated the coming of the Andals to Westeros, sounds that spoke of older, bloodier times. The clash came with the violence of thunder against stone. Dornish spears thrust forward in perfect formation, their greater reach giving them the first taste of blood. Bronze points bit deep into northern flesh, and men screamed as they died. But the Skagosi were not ordinary soldiers, they were island-born warriors who knew no fear, and their fury was a thing of legend. Artos carved through the spear wall like a man possessed, ice leaving trails of crimson mist in the air. The Valyrian blade sang as it worked, its edge so keen it parted bronze spearheads from their hafts as easily as a knife might cut parchment. Behind him, Stig and his men howled their ancient battle cries, pressing forward into the teeth of Dornish steel. Then Prince Lewin stepped from the press, his spear dancing toward Artos with serpentine grace. The weapon moved like a living thing, weaving deadly patterns in the air that spoke of years of training and countless battles won. Steel met bronze with a sound like breaking bells. Artos found himself pressed hard, the Dornish prince's speed forcing him back step by bloody step. Each thrust came faster than the last, and only ice's superior reach kept the bronze point from finding his flesh. "It seems they didn't exaggerate about your skills, wolf pup," Lewin called out, never slowing his relentless assault. Sweat beaded on his brow despite the cool air, testament to the effort required to match Artos stroke for stroke. "You're good," Artos replied through gritted teeth, barely managing to turn aside a thrust aimed at his throat. "Were it not for ice's reach, I'd be in quite the trouble." The prince's smile was cold and predatory. "Then let us see how long Valyrian steel can preserve you, young lord." They danced the deadly dance of spear and sword, each seeking the opening that would end the other's life. Around them, the battle raged on, but in this moment there was only the prince and the wolf, testing each other's mettle in the oldest game of all. Blood ran down Artos's sword arm where the spear had kissed his flesh, but he pressed on, driven by the knowledge that his men needed him. Every second he spent here was another second Sir Barristan had to butcher his soldiers. Then disaster struck. From the corner of his eye, Artos saw Hal stumble, a Dornish spear taking him low in the belly. The loyal retainer's face went white with shock, his hands fumbling at the bronze point that had found its mark. Across the melee, Bert's eyes found his twin brother's face, and in that look was all the pain of a bond about to be severed. "Hal!" Bert's anguished cry cut through the din of battle like a blade. The twin went down hard, his life's blood darkening the earth, and something broke in both Artos and Bert. The careful control that had guided their movements shattered like glass under a hammer's blow. Bert's transformation was instantaneous and terrible. The disciplined warrior vanished, he became a wild warrior. His axe became a blur of motion, carving through Dornish flesh with mechanical precision. Men died before they could raise their weapons, their screams lost in the hurricane of his grief-fueled rampage. Artos felt the same wild fury take hold of him. His vision tinged red at the edges, and his strikes became broader, more brutal, less concerned with defense than with visiting pain upon the men who had taken his loyal friend. Eyes cleaved through bronze and bone alike, painting him crimson from helm to boots. But rage, however righteous, could be a double-edged blade. Prince Lewin, veteran of countless battles, recognized the change immediately. Where before he had faced a controlled swordsman, now he fought a berserker whose wild swings left openings a skilled fighter could exploit. The prince's dark eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he pressed his advantage. The spear point came faster than thought, sliding past Artos's wild guard like a serpent striking. Bronze bit deep into his right shoulder, grinding against bone with a sound that made nearby men wince. Fire exploded through his arm, and for a moment his vision went white with agony. Lewin smiled in triumph, already pressing forward for the killing thrust, certain that wound would drop the young lord to his knees. But Artos Stark was winter-born, and winter was not easily killed. Instead of falling, he roared like a beast and swung ice in a vicious arc. The Valyrian steel, hungry for blood, caught the spear's haft and snapped it like kindling. The ancient blade's edge was so keen it barely slowed as it carved through the seasoned ash wood. Prince Lewin's eyes widened in shock. His hands, still gripping the useless remnant of his weapon, trembled as he reached for the curved sword at his belt. But death was already upon him. Ice took his head clean off in a spray of arterial blood, sending it spinning into the mud while his body stood for a heartbeat longer, not yet realizing it was dead. When it finally toppled, the sight sent a ripple of horror through the Dornish ranks. Around them, the enemy began to break. The sight of their prince's headless corpse, combined with Bert's relentless slaughter and the howling of the Skagosi, proved too much for men already shaken by northern fury. They turned and ran, abandoning their dead and wounded to save their own skins. Artos stood among the carnage, his right shoulder aflame with pain, but he is withstanding the pain, making his sword arm still strong. Blood, his own and that of his enemies, ran down his leather armor in crimson rivulets. The wound was deep, sending waves of agony through his body with each heartbeat, but it had missed the major vessels. He would live. And there was still work to be done. Somewhere in the press of battle, Sir Barristan Selmy continued his deadly work, and every moment of delay meant more northern lives lost. But first, let the enemy look upon their prince's corpse and know the price of facing the wolves of Winterfell. The Dornish spears lay broken, their leader was dead, and the North's enemies had learned to fear the dire wolf's fangs. The battle was far from over. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 21, Chapter 21. Chapter 21, Demon vs Legend. Artos stood over Prince Lewin's corpse, his breath steaming in the cold air. Blood spattered his face like war paint, and the rage still burned hot in his chest. The Dornish spears around him seemed to blur together, faceless enemies who had taken Hal from him, from Bert. His sword sang through the air, opening throats and piercing hearts with mechanical precision. Kill them all. Kill every last one. Another Dornishman fell, his scream cut short as steel found his neck. Then another. The snow beneath Artos's feet turned crimson, but still the rage demanded more blood. Rick's vision cut through the red haze like a blade. Images flashed in his mind: Barristan the bold cutting through Umbers and tall hearts like wheat before a scythe. Good men dying while he lost himself to grief and fury. The rage flickered, dimmed. Duty called louder than vengeance. He turned to Stig, his voice hoarse from screaming. See to Bert. Keep him alive. The words felt like ash in his mouth. He should be there, should share his friend's grief, but the battle would not wait for sorrow. Stig nodded grimly, understanding passing between them without need for words. He knew what the twins meant to Artos, what they all meant to each other. Artos whistled sharp and low. Snow appeared through the chaos, her hooves thundering against the frozen ground. He vaulted onto her back and spurred her forward, toward the distant clash where Barristan's blade was reaping its bloody harvest. The journey became a nightmare of steel and screaming. Enemies rose before him like waves, and he cut them down with savage efficiency. Each swing of his sword brought him closer to where his men were dying. Closer to where the legend himself was proving why songs were sung of his prowess. Through the melee, he saw the Great Jan locked in combat with Sir Barristan. Jon Umber was a giant of a man, strong as an ox and twice as fierce, but even he was being driven back step by step. The White Knight moved like water, his blade a silver blur that seemed to be everywhere at once. Artos snatched a spear from a fallen Dornishman's grip and rose in his stirrups. "Jon! Back away!" The Great Jan's trust was absolute. Without hesitation, he disengaged and rolled aside, knowing his friend would not call retreat without good reason. The spear left Artos's hand like a bolt from a crossbow. It flew true and fast, but Barristan Selmy had not survived a dozen battles by luck alone. The knight twisted with serpentine grace, the spear's point barely kissing his helm before spinning it from his head. Grey-streaked hair whipped free in the wind. Barristan stepped back with measured calm, positioning himself to face both Northmen while keeping his footing sure on the treacherous ground. His pale blue eyes missed nothing, not the way Artos favored his right shoulder, not the exhaustion that lined the Great Jan's face. Artos slid from Snow's back, his boots crunching in the blood-soaked snow. The legendary knight was wounded, a rent in his mail showed dark blood beneath, and his breathing came harder than it should. But Artos was no better. His shoulder screamed with each movement, the old wound torn fresh by battle's demands. Before he could press his advantage, more royal knights came thundering through the chaos. They'd recognized the danger. If Barristan fell here, it would break the royalist flank like a dam bursting. A look passed between Artos and the Great Jan. Years of fighting together had taught them to speak without words. "Uncle," the Great Jan bellowed to Mors Umber. "Form ranks. Keep those bastards off our backs." The Umbers surged forward like a grey tide, meeting the royal knights with savage joy. Steel rang on steel as the two forces collided, but Artos had eyes only for the man before him. "Sir Barristan." Artos raised his voice to be heard over the din. "My father always said you are the best blade in the Seven Kingdoms." He was never wrong about combat matters. The old knight's weathered face showed something almost like regret. "Lord Rickard was a good man. It's a pity that he died as he did. It grieves me more that I must cross swords with his son." It's a pity." Artos drew ice from its sheath, the Valyrian steel singing its quiet song. "Had he been granted a fair trial, you might have fought for him yourself." Barristan inclined his head fractionally. "Perhaps." They began to circle each other like wolves, feet sure despite the treacherous footing. Around them, the battle raged on, Umbers dying with curses on their lips, royal knights falling with prayers. But here, in this small circle of trampled snow, there was only the ancient dance of steel on steel. Barristan struck first, his blade moving faster than a viper's tongue. Artos barely got ice up in time, the impact sending lightning through his wounded shoulder. He bit back a cry and riposted, but the White Knight was already gone, flowing around his guard like quicksilver. "Seven hells, he's fast." For the first time in years, Artos felt the cold touch of fear. Even wounded and weary, Barristan the Bold was everything the songs claimed. His technique was flawless, his experience vast as the narrow sea. Every movement served a purpose, every feint carried deadly intent. They traded a flurry of blows that would have left lesser men headless on the ground. Ice's keen edge sought gaps in Barristan's defense while the White Knight's sword wove patterns of death in the air between them. Neither gave ground, neither showed quarter. But Artos could feel his strength ebbing like blood from a wound. The shoulder injury was taking its toll, making each swing agony. He'd been fighting since dawn, had duelled Prince Lewin and carved his way through a score of enemies. Even youth and fury had limits. Time for desperate measures. Artos suddenly abandoned all technique, throwing himself into a wild series of attacks that used Ice's superior reach to maximum advantage. The moves were reckless, leaving him open to counters, but they were also unpredictable. His shoulder screamed in protest, but he pressed on, knowing this was his only chance. Barristan gave ground for the first time, his eyes sharp as he read the desperation in the assault. He created space with each backward step, looking for the opening that must surely come. It came sooner than expected. Artos feinted high, then brought Ice around in a vicious horizontal slash that would have taken the knight's head clean off. As Barristan ducked, Artos's left hand flicked forward, sending a dagger spinning toward the older man's face. For a heartbeat, Artos thought he had him. But Barristan jerked his head aside at the last instant, the blade scoring a line across his left cheek and taking the top of his ear with it. Blood streamed down his neck, but he was very much alive. 7 bloody hells, Artos breathed. The White Knight came at him like an avalanche, sword work suddenly vicious as a winter storm. Artos tried to bring Ice up, but his shoulder finally failed him. The great sword slipped from nerveless fingers as agony flared white-hot through his arm. He rolled desperately to one side as Barristan's blade split the air where his head had been. His hand closed around a fallen short sword, his left hand could still grip steel. Barristan pulled up short, his breathing labored. "Yield, boy. You've fought with honor, but this ends now. No need to die for a cause already lost." Artos laughed, the sound harsh as a raven's cry. "Lost? We'll see about that." He raised the shorter blade in his offhand, the weight unfamiliar but not unwelcome. Around them, the melee continued its deadly course. Mor's Umber fell with 3 knights around him, but the great Yon's roar of grief and rage took 2 of them down in return. Good men on both sides painted the snow red with their life's blood. The duel resumed, but now the tide had truly turned. Artos could dual wield. Artos could fight left-handed. Years of training had seen to that, but not well enough to match a legend. He gave ground steadily, parrying desperately as Barristan pressed his advantage with workmanlike efficiency. Throwing daggers flew from Artos's belt, forcing brief respites. A hand axe spun end over end, making Barristan dance aside. Each missile bought him precious seconds, but they were finite. Soon he would have nothing left but steel and stubbornness. Buy them time. That's all you can do now. The realization came with strange peace. He couldn't win this fight, but he could make it costly. Every moment Barristan spent on him was a moment the knight wasn't cutting down his men. Every ounce of strength he drained from the legend was one less for the slaughter to come. So Artos Stark fought on, parrying with desperate skill, attacking when opportunity offered the slightest chance. He bled from a dozen cuts, stumbled more than once, but did not fall. Would not fall. Not while his men still needed him. Not while there was still breath in his body and steel in his hand. The dance of death continued. Dash. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 22, Chapter 22. Chapter 22, End of the War. Eddard Stark. Steel rang against steel, and blood sang its crimson song across the Trident's muddy banks. Eddard Stark moved through the melee like a man possessed, sword carving through enemy ranks. Each swing of his long sword sent another loyalist knight to the 7 hells, their blood mixing with the churned earth beneath his boots. The silent wolf had found his voice at last, and it spoke only in the language of death. Before him stood Sir Jonothor Derry, white cloak stained crimson, his sword dancing in deadly arcs. The King's Guard knight was everything the songs claimed: swift as summer lightning, graceful as a dancer, deadly as winter's bite. But Ned's rage burned hotter than dragon's fire, fed by memories of his father and Brandon. Your king is mad, Ned snarled, pressing forward with a savage thrust. And madness runs in Targaryen blood. My king is my king, Derry replied, parrying with practiced ease. Until death takes me or him. Steel kissed steel again and again, each impact sending tremors up Ned's arms. Derry was good, perhaps better than good. But right now rage ran hot in Ned's veins, and grief had sharpened his blade keener than any whetstone. Derry lunged, seeking Ned's heart. The young lord twisted aside, letting iron sword sweep low, catching the knight behind the knee. Derry stumbled, his guard dropping for just a heartbeat, but a heartbeat was all the silent wolf needed. A sword hit him in the throat, quick and clean. Sir Jonothor Derry fell without a sound, his white cloak spreading beneath him like snow touched with blood. Ned stepped over the corpse and pressed on. More enemies awaited, and the wolf pack was not yet sated. The battle raged around him, northern spears piercing loyalist shields, rivermen cutting down fleeing cavalry, the thunder of Robert's warhammer somewhere in the press. Then came the sound he'd been waiting for, a great roar from the center of the field, voices lifted in triumph. The dragon is dead. Prince Rickard is dead. Ned cut his way through the thinning ranks, Jeor Mormont at his shoulder, both men carving a bloody path toward the cheering. There, in a circle of odd soldiers, stood Robert Baratheon. The demon of the trident leaned heavily on his hammer, breathing hard, his antlered helm dented and blood-spattered. At his feet lay Prince Rickard Targaryen, the last dragon, his magnificent armor caved in where Robert's hammer had found his heart. The silver prince who had stolen Lyanna was silver no more. He was only meat and bone and spilled blood now, like any other dead man. Finally, Ned whispered, though whether it was relief or grief he felt, he could not say. The enemy began throwing down their weapons. Some ran for the river, others knelt in surrender. Victory horns sounded across the field as the dragon's banners came down and the crowned stag rose in their place. Jon Arryn approached, his blue eyes bright with triumph despite the blood on his blade. "We've won, Ned." Robert nodded, still staring down at his fallen enemy. He rumbled. "Finally put that silver-haired bastard in the ground where he belongs." But Lord Arryn's expression had grown grave. "The right flank hasn't ceased fighting. From what my scouts report, it's a slaughter. They're not taking prisoners, not hearing surrender. Most of our men there are dead or dying, but those who remain..." He shook his head. "They fight like madmen." Cold dread settled in Ned's stomach. Artos was with the right flank. His younger brother, barely a man grown, fighting alongside the mountain clans and the Umbers. "I'll go to them," he said, already turning toward his horse. "I'll make them stop." "Take men with you," Arryn called after him. "If they won't listen to reason." But Ned was already riding hard toward the sound of distant battle, Jeor Mormont and half a dozen northern lords racing after him. What they found was closer to a charnel house than a battlefield. Bodies lay heaped like cordwood, loyalist and rebel alike, though the dragon's men had gotten the worst of it. The survivors, and there were precious few, moved through the carnage like men in a fever dream, cutting down any who still breathed, deaf to calls for quarter. "Old God's mercy," Jeor breathed. "They've gone mad with it." Even Roose Bolton, cold as ice and twice as pitiless, seemed shaken by what he saw. "This is not war," the Lord of the Dread Fort said quietly. "This is butchery." Ned spurred his horse forward, seeking out the familiar face of Stig, one of his brother's second. The man's armor was dented and bloodied, his sword red to the hilt, but his eyes still held a flicker of sanity. "Stig!" Ned called. "The war is won. Prince Rickard is dead. Call them back." Stig looked up at him with hollow eyes. "You think I haven't tried? They won't hear it. Won't hear anything but the blood singing in their ears." Commander said no mercy, no surrender, and they took it to heart, they did. Only voice they'll heed now is his. "Where is he?" Ned demanded, though his heart already knew the answer. "Where's Artos?" "Rode off that way," Stig pointed with his bloody blade. "Said men were dying. Haven't seen him since." Ned's blood ran cold. He wheeled his horse toward where Stig pointed, the other lords following. They found more carnage, more madness, and then... Sir Baristan sell me. The boy was stubborn as a mule and twice as foolhardy. Baristan had to admit a grudging respect for young Artos Stark. The lad had no business lasting this long against Baristan the Bold. He is strong and a genius swordman, experienced in some battles, but he is still green compared to him. But what he lacked in experience, he made up for in cunning and sheer, bloody-minded determination. The boy fought dirty. He'd thrown dirt in Baristan's eyes, used fallen men as shields, even tried to tangle the knight's feet with a dying soldier's entrails. Each trick bought him precious seconds, though it could not buy him victory. Blood seeped from a dozen wounds on the young Stark's body. His right arm hung useless, only throwing daggers time to time. His breath came in ragged gasps, and still he fought on. Not to win, they both knew that was impossible, but to buy time. Time for his men to kill the tired me, perhaps, or simply time to die on his feet like a wolf should. "You fight well, boy," Baristan said, genuine admiration in his voice. "Your father would be proud." "Artos." "My father is dead," Artos snarled, circling like the wolf he was. "Burned alive by your mad king." He had one dagger left. Hidden, waiting for the right moment. A desperate gamble, but then, desperate men made the most dangerous foes. "He is going die anyways, I will try to kill him before dying." He deliberately opened a gap. Baristan pressed his attack, targeting the boy's current sword arm. Young Stark's sword clattered to the ground, and the knight moved in for the killing stroke. "The war is over," a voice rang out across the field. "Rickard is dead. Stop this madness." Eddard Stark sat his horse at the edge of the carnage, a sword naked in his hands, his grey eyes blazing with fury and fear in equal measure. For a heartbeat, everyone froze. Then Artos moved, his hidden dagger flashing up to catch Baristan's descending blade. The boy was fast, but Baristan was faster. His sword turned, opening a small gash along the young wolf's ribs instead of piercing his heart. Artos stumbled back, breathing hard, blood streaming down his side. "Right on time, brother," he gasped. "Another heartbeat and I'd have killed us both." Artos is able to speak barely. Words breaking in between. This is the first time Artos thought he is a dead man. Baristan straightened, his sword suddenly feeling heavy as stone in his hands. Rickard dead? The Silver Prince with his dreams of prophecy, dead on the Trident's bloody banks? The knight let his blade fall. What point was there in fighting now? His king was dead, his cause lost. He was forsworn, no matter what he did. Ned dismounted and gathered his brother into his arms, careful of his wounds. "You bloody fool," he said, though his voice was thick with relief. "What were you thinking, facing Baristan the Bold alone?" "Wasn't alone," Artos protested weakly. "Had ice with me. Good old Valyrian steel. Speaking of which," he nodded toward where ice lay in the mud. "Might want to pick it up from this rubble." "Maesters," Ned called sharply. "Now. The battle first," Jeor Mormont reminded him. "The men still won't stop." Ned's jaw tightened, but Artos pushed himself upright. "He's right. They're my men, my responsibility." He whistled, sharp and clear. Artos in the meantime goes towards Great John, who is standing above the body of his dead uncle. "Artos, he was a good man. Cared for us. Tried to protect us from Lord Roga anger when we go to fight with wildlings without permission." Great John nodded. "He died fighting for the Starks. It's a honorable cause. Old gods would be welcoming." Artos wanted to talk more, but he had a war to stop. Snow appeared through the carnage. The Great Jan helped boost him into the saddle, though every movement sent fresh blood flowing from his wounds. Artos rode among his men, his voice carrying across the field despite his weakness. "Stand down. The war is won. Take their surrender." Slowly, gradually, the madness began to fade from northern eyes. Weapons were lowered. The killing stopped. Artos found Bert last of all, the big man. He was just a boy when twins started following him due to order of his father and Brandon. "I'm sorry, Bert," Artos said, dismounting carefully. He pulled the grieving giant into an embrace. "Hal was a good man. The best of men." "Should have been me," Bert choked out. "Should have been me that died, not him. He had more to live for." "No," Artos said firmly. "He died doing his duty. There's honor in that. More honor than most men ever find." He pulled back, studying Bert's face. "But you're alive, and that means you have work still to do." "Live for him, Bert. Live the life he'd want you to live." Bert nodded slowly, then Artos asked, "Did we get them?" "The men who killed him." "Every last one," Bert promised. He smiled then, or tried to. "Good war." But the words never came. The young wolf collapsed, blood loss and exhaustion finally claiming their due. The Battle of the Trident was won, but for Artos Stark, the fighting was done. The realm was Robert's now, but the price of victory lay written in blood across the Trident's banks. In time, the songs would speak only of glory and triumph. But those who had been there would remember the true cost and the madness that lived in the heart of every man, waiting for war to set it free. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 23, Chapter 23. Chapter 23, Recovery and Cravens. Artos Stark. The world returned to him slowly, like dawn breaking through storm clouds. Artos opened his eyes to find three familiar faces hovering over him: Bert's worried frown, Stig's grizzled scowl, and Ya's nervous fidgeting. The tent around him smelled of blood and herbs, the air thick with the aftermath of battle. "My lord," Bert said quickly, moving to help him sit up. His big hands were gentle as a mother's, though they still bore the stains of war beneath the nails. "I'll fetch the maesters," Ya offered, already turning toward the tent flap. Artos raised a hand to stop him, wincing as the movement pulled at his bandaged ribs. "Wait." His voice came out as a croak, dry as old leather. "Give me a moment to gather my wits." "Lord Eddard wants to be called the moment you wake," Bert said, though he made no move to leave. "He's been here every hour, checking on you like a mother hen." "Thank the old gods he's not here now," Artos managed, attempting a weak smile. "I don't think I could survive his scolding on top of everything else." That earned him chuckles from both Bert and Stig, though their laughter held little humor. "How long was I out?" Artos asked, testing his limbs. Everything ached, but nothing felt broken that wasn't already broken. 16 hours, Stig replied. "Good sleep for a wolf, I'd say. Though I've had more comfortable beds." Artos looked at Bert, noting the hollow look in the big man's eyes. "You should be grieving, not standing guard over me." Bert's jaw tightened. "And let Hal's ghost haunt me for the rest of my days? He'd have my hide if I left you unguarded." "I'm not a babe in swaddling clothes, Bert. There are plenty of men." "It's my duty, my lord," Bert interrupted, his voice firm despite the grief that weighted it. "My brother would have done the same, and now it falls to me." Artos studied the young giant's face and saw there would be no arguing. Grief had its own logic, and duty was sometimes all that kept a man from drowning in it. The maester arrived shortly after, a thin man with nervous hands and kind eyes. He seemed genuinely surprised to find Artos awake and coherent. "Remarkable," he murmured as he examined the bandages. "I've seen seasoned knights die from lesser wounds. The gods must have plans for you yet, my lord." Artos replied dryly. "Starks are too stubborn to die easy." "Food," he added, his stomach clenching with sudden hunger. "I could eat a horse." "Soup," the maester said firmly. "Broth with small pieces of meat. Nothing heavy yet." When the food came, a thin gruel that tasted like dishwater but filled the gnawing emptiness in his belly. Artos devoured it like a man half-starved. Which, he supposed, he was. He stood when he finished, ignoring the maester's protests. "My lord, please," the old man fussed. "You need rest. Your body has endured tremendous trauma." "My body is mine to know," Artos said, testing his balance. The world swayed slightly, but held steady. "Tend to the men who need you more than I do." A flutter of black wings caught his eye. Rick perched on a tent pole, his dark eyes fixed on Artos with what looked like reproach. "Well, hello to you too, you feathered bastard," Artos said, attempting a smile. "Come to see your friends." Rick cocked his head, gave what sounded distinctly like a snort of disdain, and flew away. "That moody brat!" Artos muttered, which set his men to laughing despite themselves. "Clothes," he said when the laughter died. "I need to walk among the men." "My lord, perhaps you should," Bert began. "Clothes. Now." The tone brooked no argument. Stig handed over a simple tunic and breeches, and Artos dressed carefully, making sure the fabric covered the worst of his bandages. A commander couldn't look weak, not when his men had bled and died on his orders. Outside the tent, the late afternoon sun painted the camp in shades of gold and crimson. Guards snapped to attention as he emerged, some dropping to one knee. "Commander," they called out, their voices carrying a mixture of relief and something approaching awe. Artos straightened his shoulders and nodded to each man. Whatever pain he felt, whatever weakness plagued him, it would not show. "Not here, not now." "The funeral?" he asked Bert as they walked. "Tonight, my lord. They're still gathering wood for the pyres." Bert's voice was steady, but Artos heard the tremor beneath. "There are many pyres to build." They walked in silence for a time, passing groups of wounded men and camp followers tending to the aftermath of war. The smell of blood and smoke hung heavy in the air, mixing with the scents of cooking food and horse dung. War had its own perfume, and it was not pleasant. The Great Jan found them near the horse lines, his massive frame somehow managing to look both relieved and disapproving. "Already walking about like nothing happened," John Umber said, shaking his head. "You should be flat on your back for another fortnight at least." "I've had 16 hours of sleep." "That's luxury for a soldier." "Luxury, he says." The Great Jan's laugh was bitter. "You faced down 2 Kingsguard in one day and lived to boast of it. The songs will remember that." "I didn't kill Baristan Selmy," Artos said quietly. "The man's a legend. I barely kept him from gutting me like a fish, and he was injured, tired and an old man. That old knight is one of the best fighters in the Teal'c and was trying his best to send you to the 7 hells, and you held him off long enough for help to arrive. Don't diminish it. But your brilliant plan at the end? Throwing your life away for nothing." Artos's expression sobered. That was foolish. But I was a dead man either way, and you knew it. At least I wanted to went down swinging." They spoke of other things as they made their rounds: the wounded, the supplies, the disposition of prisoners. But eventually, the conversation turned to losses. "Your cousins?" Artos asked gently. John's face darkened. "Both of them didn't survive to know the news. Hawthor and Crow food both." He was quiet for a long moment. "Father's taking it hard, though he'd die before showing it. 50 years he's been watching young men die in wars. Says it doesn't get easier." "I'm sorry, John. They died with swords in their hands and enemies at their feet. What more can a warrior ask?" A chance to live, Artos thought, but kept the words to himself. The living had their own burdens to bear. They visited the wounded after that, moving from tent to tent where men lay groaning on blood-soaked cots. Artos spoke to each man he could, offering what comfort words could provide. Most seemed heartened just to see him walking about their commander, still alive despite everything. When the rounds were finished, Artos made his way to the command tent where the lords were assembled. The pavilion was large enough to hold a dozen men comfortably, with maps spread across a central table and wine flowing freely despite the early hour. Ned looked up as he entered, relief and exasperation warring on his face. "You should be resting." "I'm fine, brother. I know my own limits." "Do you?" Ned's grey eyes were sharp with concern. "Because from where I stand, it looks like you're trying to kill yourself through sheer stubbornness." "Where's Robert?" Artos asked, deflecting. "Recovering," Jonaran answered. "Nothing serious, but he took a mace to the ribs and needs time to heal properly. Unlike some people I could name." Artos ignored the pointed look. "What word from the realm?" "Victory has wings," Sir Brynden Tully said, his weathered face grim. "My brother sends word that Lord Frey is finally marshalling his men. Wants to join the cause now that it's won." The words hit Artos like a slap. "Send him word that his swords aren't needed. We've no use for fair-weather friends who only show courage after the battle's done. It's a disrespect to the sacrifice of the men, they sat on their hands while better men bled and died." Artos's voice carried the chill of the north. "I'll not see them profit from courage he never showed. I will not sully the sacrifice of men to honor cravens." "That's a harsh stance," Brynden said carefully. Ned sighed. "Sir Brynden. The North holds grudges, and being a craven runs deep. Tell Lord Hoster to write that House Stark bears the responsibility for the slight. You can told them North refused their support." The Blackfish nodded slowly. "I'll craft a raven that keeps the peace while making your position clear." "Speaking of positions," Artos said, settling into a camp chair despite his aching ribs, "what were our losses?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Jonaran cleared his throat. "The battle was costly. Perhaps 30,000 dead across all fronts, both Crown and us, with many that number wounded." "But your wing?" He shook his head. 21,000 men went into that fight, yours and the Loyalists combined. Only 7,000 walked away. 4,000 of ours, 3,000 of theirs." The numbers hit Artos like physical blows. Half of his force, gone in a single afternoon's butchery. It was tough words to hear, but the one he was ready for it. "You should have accepted surrenders," Aran continued, his voice gentle but firm. "The slaughter went beyond necessity. Men are calling it the bloody dance, and some of your own soldiers look at you like you're touched by madness." "I did what needed doing," Artos said quietly. "My men won the fight. At a terrible cost. Wars are won by living soldiers, not dead ones. Dead soldiers don't rebel again either." The tent fell silent at that. In the distance, Artos could hear the sound of axes biting wood as men prepared the funeral pyres. Tomorrow there would be ashes where today there were heroes. "The realm is Robert's now," Jonaran said finally. "But at what price? How many fathers will never see their sons again? How many wives will weep alone?" Artos met the old lord's eyes steadily. "Fewer than would have wept if we'd lost. War isn't meant to be kind, my lord. It's meant to be decisive. And what of mercy? What of honor?" "Honor?" Artos's laugh was bitter as winter wind. "Ask my father and Brandon about honor. See how much good it did them when Ares called for their heads." He stood, wincing as his ribs pulled tight. "I gave the enemy the same mercy they would have shown us, none at all. That's the only honor war understands." Outside, the sound of hammering echoed through the camp as men built platforms for their dead. Soon the pyres would burn, sending brave souls to whatever gods would have them. The living would mourn and heal and try to forget the sound of dying men. But Artos Stark would remember. He would remember every face, every name, every drop of blood spilled in his service. That was his burden now, to carry the weight of their deaths, and to make sure they had not died for nothing. The war was won. But the real fighting was just beginning. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. Chapter 24, Chapter 24. Chapter 24, Demons of the North. Artos Stark. The funeral pyres had burned 3 days past, their smoke long since scattered by the wind, but the taste of ash still lingered in Artos's mouth. Victory tasted different than he'd imagined, bitter as old iron, heavy as a gravestone. His body was healing faster than the maesters had predicted. The cuts that should have taken a moon to close were already pink scars, and his sword arm, which he'd feared might never grip a blade properly again, felt almost as strong as before. Perhaps the old gods weren't finished with him yet. Or perhaps, as some whispered, demons healed quickly. The demon moniker did stick together. Even my are famous, or accurately saying infamous, as demons of the north. The 4,000 who'd survived what the camp was naming the bloody dance, the slaughter on the right flank that had left 2/3 of both armies feeding the crows. The title had spread through the loyalist prisoners and rebel camps like wildfire, whispered in fear and awe. Robert had earned himself a name too, the demon of the trident, but his was sung in triumph, not spoken in dread. Jonaran made certain of that, pushing the tale of the great lord who'd crushed the dragon prince with his warhammer. A hero's song for the bards, clean and glorious. Artos's tale was different. Darker. The kind of story told in hushed voices around dying fires, when men wanted to frighten their enemies. He understood the necessity of it. The common folk needed to see Robert as their savior, not another mad king drunk on blood. Fear served well in battle, but poorly in politics. With rare exceptions like Tywin Lannister. Still, it rankled. They'd won the war with northern steel and northern blood, and now the South wanted to forget the cost. Their problem, he told himself. I've done my part. But the men who'd fought beside him, they were changed. He could see it in their eyes, the way they held themselves, the hunger that never seemed to fade. They looked at him like hounds waiting for the hunt, ready to follow him to the seven hells and back if he but gave the word. Artos made his way to his command tent, where his inner circle waited. The canvas walls couldn't contain the atmosphere that had settled over his forces, thick with violence barely held in check. Stig sat cleaning his blade with methodical precision, the steel gleaming like silver in the afternoon light. The men are restless, he said without looking up. They don't want to go home. They want to fight. Bert agreed, his massive hands folded carefully in his lap. Still trying to forget how much blood had stained them. They're calling you the demon commander now, my lord. Ready to die on your word alone. The great Jan lounged in a camp chair, but his posture was that of a wolf at rest, all coiled energy and predatory awareness. Half of them sleep with their weapons drawn. Not from fear, mind you. From hope. Artos settled into his own chair, feeling the familiar ache in his healing ribs. I've heard the complaints. Jonaran's getting nervous about our reputation. Even our allies are keeping their distance. What's their grievance? Stig asked, testing his blade's edge against his thumb. A thin line of blood appeared. We won their bloody war for them. According to the Lords Paramount, we won it too thoroughly, Artos replied. They say we should have accepted surrenders when they were offered. Should have shown mercy to men who'd have shown us none. Mercy's a luxury, Bert said quietly. Dead men don't surrender. No, but they also don't raise armies in revenge, Artos countered. That's the concern, anyway. We killed too many important men-lords, knights, heirs. Made too many enemies in the Crownlands. Now their families will remember every slight, every death. The great Jan spat. Let them remember. Let them know what happens when you cross the north. After all, the north remembers the most. For us, it doesn't matter, Artos said. We're northerners. We understand that wars are meant to be brutal, decisive. But the Sautrons. He shrugged. They play different games. Politics over warfare. They need Robert to be seen as a liberator, not a conqueror. Politics, Stig muttered like it was a curse word. Politics. Footsteps approached the tent, and Ned's familiar silhouette appeared at the entrance. His brother looked older than his years, weighted down by responsibilities that seemed to multiply daily. "Brother," Ned said, stepping inside with a tired smile. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Never," Artos replied, though he noticed how his men straightened at Ned's presence. The future Lord of Winterfell commanded respect even from demons. But then Ned's face brightened, the weariness lifting from his features like morning mist. "I have good news for once. A raven from Riverrun. Catelyn is with child. The babe should come within a moon or two." The tent fell silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in congratulations. Artos stood and embraced his brother warmly, surprised by the genuine joy that filled his chest. After so much death, the promise of new life felt like a blessing from the gods themselves. "A nephew or niece," Artos said, grinning. "Have you thought of names?" Ned replied, his voice soft with memory. "I will let the mother decide. I will not be there at the time anyway." "Congratulations, my lord," the great Jan said gruffly. "The North needs strong heirs." Bert and Stig added their own well wishes, and for a moment the tent felt lighter, filled with hope rather than the weight of war. When Ned took a seat among them, his expression grew more serious. "What were you discussing when I arrived?" "The bloody dance," the great Jan replied bluntly. "How the men have changed. How we've all changed, if I'm being honest." Ned nodded grimly. "It's a problem. Jonaran is beside himself trying to contain the stories. They've even issued orders to stop the tales from spreading further." He ran a hand through his hair. "John says it will be difficult enough selling Robert as the rightful king without adding tales of northern demons to complicate matters. So they'll focus on Robert and Rhaegar," Artos said. "It wasn't a question. That and young Lyn Corbray's heroics after his father fell. Clean victories, noble sacrifices. Your battle." Ned shook his head. "Too bloody for the history books, they say." "Probably for the best," Artos admitted. "We sent our message to the right people. The lords will remember, and that's what matters." "True. Having a reputation like Tywin Lannister serves no one, especially not the common folk." Ned leaned forward. "But there are other concerns. When do we march on King's Landing?" "The men are recovered, and they're eager." Artos asked. "Bloodthirsty, you mean," Ned said with a sardonic smile. "There's to be a war council tonight. You're welcome to attend, though I suspect most of it will be logistics and politics." Artos waved a dismissive hand. "You handle that. I've little patience for the games lords play with words. Just make sure that when it comes time for justice, when we finally settle accounts for Father and Brandon, this time the North isn't left watching from the sidelines." Ned's grey eyes hardened with resolve. "Never. We will have our vengeance, brother. The North remembers. And the North will have its due," Artos thought as his brother departed. The lords could play their games, spin their tales, and polish their reputations. But when the reckoning came, and it would come, they would need their demons again. He just wondered if, when that day arrived, anyone would be able to control what they'd unleashed on the Trident's bloody banks. Outside, he could hear his men at their weapons practice, the ring of steel on steel carrying across the camp like a war song. 4,000 wolves, sharpening their teeth, waiting for the word to hunt. The war might be won, but the killing wasn't over. Not yet. _____. You like the work? Please support person with folded hands. Please join the Patreon and join the pack. www.patreon.com/CraganTheBlackWolf. Thank you for your support and I am really grateful. New chapter is coming soon. Write a review.